debate night. It's the most wondrous of nights. It's a magical night. I don't know. We don't have an intro for this with debate night. Don't get the wrong idea. We're never going daily. That's not what this is about. But it is debates, and we get a lot of people who tune into our live streaming. So we figured, okay, tonight let's provide you with some live streaming. I know I didn't have cable for a long time until we had to bundle it for premium internet. So for those out there who don't, we're going to live stream the debates. We will provide our commentary here tonight, and we have a drinking game. You can read the rules in the YouTube description or those on Facebook, the Facebook description, or ar15.com, arfcom. Anytime Donald Trump says truthfully, frankly, honestly, or let me tell you, drink. Mm-hmm. Anytime he says okay, half sip or rehydrate with water. We don't want any lawsuits. Anytime Hillary Clinton coughs, wheezes, sneezes, or looks of general ill health, drink. Anytime she accuses Donald Trump or Republicans of being racist, sexist, prejudiced, xenophobic, half sip or hydrate. Again, we don't want any lawsuits. So these are the rules, but you can draw your own conclusions.
Also, in fairness, this could be cut out any moment now. We just don't know.
The stream?
We just don't know. The stream
could cut out at any moment because it's not fair use, apparently, for public presidential debates to provide commentary. So we do have our adult beverages going here. There's no FCC, unlike Louder with Crowder on the Thursdays.
But did you check with YouTube? They could have their own rules for that.
Yes, they could have their own. They could demonetize it. You were drinking a coffee beer. That's what this says. What do we have? Founders? Not get Jared picked it up. I told him if he got a fruit beer, I'd crucify him. It's a pale ale brew, but it's not a stout, but brewed with light roasted coffee. It's good.
Pale ale.
Good. Very nice. Yeah. I don't know if that's cheating because technically there could be some caffeine in there. What do you think is going to happen tonight with the debate? By the way, first off, fair warning. If you're looking for cheerleading, if you're looking for people who are in the tank for someone and just, Trump's going to do... This is not the stream for you, okay? We're going to just watch it, call it as we see it, good or bad on either side, okay? Because I've seen all these other channels on there, going like, oh, man, shouldn't even allow this to happen out of ethics. Trump's going to destroy Hillary Clinton. Honestly, I think she's probably going to have a pretty good showing, but Donald Trump doesn't need a great showing. He just needs to not lay an egg. What do you think we should expect tonight?
I honestly have no idea what to expect. We've been looking for this night. We talked about it for months now. I mean, even last year, I think people had speculated it could end up Trump-Hillary. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, a long time coming. I don't know what to expect. I'm curious to see which Trump shows up. Is this?
I just sent you my screen, by the way.
You did?
Yeah, I realized I forgot it. You got it?
Yeah, I do have it.
Okay. So we're going to be tweeting along with you guys.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So I just want to see which Trump shows up to this tonight.
I think Hillary Clinton is going to be very well prepared. I think she's probably going to try and remain on policy. I think she's probably trying to. She'll try to remain substantive. And I think Donald Trump, I don't know how Donald Trump's going to do. He's never really had a one-on-one format where it's, hey, you've got a couple minutes, go. The sound bites actually work in his favor when there were 19,000 people on the stage. But in a one-on-one, it's kind of the difference between a short video and a podcast.
That said, compared to the primaries where, the attacks were all, he's not real conservative, this and that, none of those cards are on the table for Hillary tonight. She can't play any of them.
It's true.
They all work. They make him a better candidate to her crowd.
Except he's not going to get any Democrats. He needs to get more of the Republican base. He doesn't have enough approval yet. There are some Republicans who still have until election night for him to prove it to them. So there are a lot of debates don't usually settle anything. Let me know when they're bringing them out. Debates don't usually settle anything. The difference here is they're both so unlikable, and there are so many people who are undecided, and it's so close. And nothing's been predictable. So it's anybody's ball game at this point. Typically, people, again, who are in the tank for Trump are going to say he destroyed her no matter what. People who can't stand Trump are going to say he's a racist and he sucks no matter what. So we'll try not to do that. Obviously, I like to see points scored on Hillary Clinton because it's fun. But I don't know. Sometimes it's... By the way, Lester Holt, I was hearing, is a Republican.
That's the same rumor I heard as well.
I'm not even convinced he's black.
No, that's up for question too.
That's a guy who walks into Brooks Brothers, and it's a betting pool as to where he's from. It's that kind of guy, Lester Holt.
Yep.
Where you go, what do you think he is? Do you think he's biracial? I don't know.
A little Japanese in there, no one knows.
I don't think anyone's thinking Japanese. No. Let me look on the Twitter here. Let me see what we got going on. People are tweeting a bunch. Live stream. Come take it, I dare you. I don't even know what that means. Is there an S. Crowder IRC chat anywhere from Base Citizen? Yeah, it's Twitter. You should make chat open. More fun for all. Listen, YouTube chat just evolves really quickly. Twitter allows you to stay in direct communication. Plus, it doesn't slow down the stream as much, considering we have. So, hey, look, it's Shep Smith. I always think that guy looks like a catfish with AIDS.
Yeah.
You mean like a catfish? Like you got on the line, you're like, hey, I got a catfish. Hey, it's got AIDS. That's the Shep face. Rumors,
but he covers the news. It's a catfish.
That he was ill
news
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for those if you haven't figured out, we're watching the Fox News version
Why?
of it on because the CNN one cut out because it was somebody illegitimately just streaming it as is, no commentary, and they were quickly swifted into a dark dungeon.
Some people are saying way more
mercilessly.
fun with the chat turned on. Do we want to turn the chat on? Can we do it once it started?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
well, here's the thing. You can go in the chat.
Things can get crazy.
But we're not going to be able to read it. We're reading Twitter. So if you want to get to us, go in on Twitter. We have too many things going on right now. But if you want to, I don't care. Enable the chat. That's fine.
All right.
It doesn't really serve a purpose with the show.
Oh, my Lord. People are saying some weird stuff.
Really? Already?
No, I can't see it.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
No.
Your feed froze. Yes, I'm watching live stream on S. Crowder. Seems pretty hardcore. Does root beer count? No, it does not. Trump will win, Crowder. Stop being a negative Nancy. American Bob, you should leave. Trump will win! See, that just shows how... Don't be the closed-minded oaf that liberals think you are. He may lose. He may win. He may lose. You got to go in and be at point zero. He may win. He may lose. That's one thing. Like it could go either way. Mm-hmm. There are very low expectations for Trump, too. They've been setting that this week, where they've been saying he hasn't been preparing at all, and Hillary is hyper-preparing, so it's supposed to be kind of this whole laid-back Trump versus Hillary, they're going to try and make her look robotic and staccato. Yeah. And I'm not even saying that that's not accurate. Did the stream go out again?
No, I'm just checking to see if there's...
Well, we have Mrs. Crowder, who may or may not come in later on. For future debates, by the way, we will have lines open. We don't have it now because we're updating our whole systems and moving stuff over, but #NeverDaily. Do you remember the rules, Not Gay Jared?
I do, because I wrote them down, and they are presently in front of me. That's the only reason I remember. We can watch the NBC version, too, here. A couple different ones we can... Oh, Lord. Chuck Todd. Time has not been good to that guy.
It looks like if a caterpillar crawled on his face and died, but if the caterpillar had a wig of pubes.
That's fair.
Like just picture like a caterpillar like in a public stall, and it dragged through the pubic hair and then crawled. Are people seeing me doing this? I can't see. I'm only seeing the feed. Yeah. That's Chuck Todd. I know people are going, well, why is this so? Listen, we're just waiting here. We're killing time. Okay, there's Lester Holt.
Doing his Lester Holt stuff.
We couldn't do a cartoon like Lester Holt.
No.
It would be considered too unrealistic. Okay, is he giving the rules here?
Campaigns.
All right.
The 90-minute debate is divided into 6 segments, each 50 minutes long. We'll explore 3 topic areas tonight: achieving prosperity, America's direction,
and stream is shut down.
Yeah, stream is shut down right away. NBC.
At the start of each segment,
now he's ABC though, right? Lester Holt.
I think he is.
That's nice to see them all coming together to try and elect Hillary.
That is. It's inspiring if I've ever seen something.
Someone said Facebook feed is broken. I don't think it's broken.
I think their stuff is broken.
Are you guys playing the drinking game? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. What? Oh, we're a little late, I guess. The stream's a little late. Hillary, stop ruining it for us. My wife's ruining it. Okay, there comes Hillary Clinton. Oh, God, she went with the Kim Jong-un look.
Oh, Lord.
Hillary went with a Kim Jong-un look. If Kim Jong-un was shot and was bleeding out in the ICU, he'd look like Hillary Clinton. She has the same body shape as Kim Jong-un, too. That's just not good.
She does.
My mom's a wardrobe stylist. This is a great example. She needs someone to tell her, like, hey, I get you like those suits, but those aren't the right style for you.
What kind of golfer do you think she is, though? Maybe yacht racer. Think she can give old Kim a run?
I don't know that she can move her hips to golf. All right, let's see what these first questions are. This is weird.
I am honored to have this role, but this evening belongs to the candidates and just as important to the American people.
Oh, right away, resting bitch face.
Which one?
As well as your visions and your values. So, let's begin.
Well, Hillary, hold on.
This opening segment, achieving prosperity.
Achieving prosperity. Hillary Clinton? I just go to Goldman Sachs.
Economic realities in America today.
Give a speech.
6 straight years of job
Kill a guy.
growth, And new census numbers show
Take his
incomes
wallet.
have increased at a record rate after years of stagnation. However, income inequality remains significant, and nearly half of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Beginning with you, Secretary Clinton.
By the way, income inequality, but we've talked about that in a recent podcast. Let me let her answer, and then we'll come back in here.
Well, thank you, Lester, and thanks to Hofstra for hosting us.
Did you hear they issued trigger warnings before this? Yeah, and created a safe space for the debates.
What kind of country we want to be and what kind of future we'll build together. Today is my granddaughter's second birthday, so I think about this a lot. First, we have to build an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top.
Not just
that
me.
Means we need new jobs,
Hillary
good
Clinton.
jobs.
She hasn't been on top in years.
Incomes. I want us to invest in you. I want us to invest in your future. That means jobs in infrastructure, in advanced manufacturing, in innovation and technology, clean renewable energy, and small business, because most of the new jobs will come from small business. We also have to make the economy
Did you see that she raises from billionaires like 20 to 1 to Donald Trump?
Oh, really?
Yes. Small business, they don't like Democrats. Small middle business, they typically vote Republican. Big business, they hedge their bets with Democrats. People don't understand that because you need big government for big business. Hillary Clinton, no one's buying this. She is the buddy of big business.
And I want us to do more to support people who
I've got to say, she looks more refreshed than she has in recent weeks.
Well, that's the Botox and,
about the difficult choices you face and
morticians are
the botulism.
Come a long way.
So let's have paid family leave, earned sick days. Let's be sure we have affordable child care and debt-free college.
Paid family leave? Is it no longer maternity? They want to pass that one down to guys?
And close the corporate loopholes.
Close the corporate loopholes that allow me to raise millions from the big banks. She doesn't mean that.
Donald, it's good to be with you. We're going to have a debate where we are talking about the important issues facing our country. You have to judge us. Who can shoulder the immense, awesome responsibilities of the presidency?
Someone said, can you turn up the debate volume a little bit?
Put into action the plans that will make
your life better. Is that better for you, Taylor McPherson?
I hope that I will be able to earn your vote on November 8th.
Secretary Clinton, thank you. Mr. Trump, the same question to you. It's about putting more money into the pockets of American workers. You have up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lester. Our jobs are fleeing the country. They're going to Mexico. They're going to many other countries. You look at what China is doing to our country in terms of making our product.
We almost put that in the drinking game.
They're devaluing their currency, and there's nobody in our government to fight them.
And
we have a very good fight, and we have a winning fight, because they're using our country as a piggy bank to rebuild China, and many other countries are doing the same thing. So we're losing our good jobs, so many of them. When you look at what's happening in Mexico, a friend of mine who builds plants said it's the 8th wonder of the world. They're building some of the biggest plants anywhere in the world, some of the most sophisticated, some of the best plants. With the United States, as he said, not so much. So Ford is leaving. You see that, their small car division leaving. Thousands of jobs, leaving Michigan, leaving Ohio.
They should leave.
And
they should leave with the UAW. They should leave in the state that's bled them dry. It's not pro-America. What, are you going to force them to stay?
Disagree a little bit as to numbers and amounts and what we're going to do, but perhaps we'll be talking about that later. But we have to stop our jobs from being stolen from us. We have to stop our companies from leaving the United States, and with it, firing all of their people. All you have to do is take a look at Carrier Air Conditioning in Indianapolis. They fired 1,400 people. They're going to Mexico.
This is not quite the plug that Carrier Air Conditioning wanted.
No.
that split screen.
We cannot let it happen. Under my plan, I'll be reducing taxes tremendously, from 35% to 15% for companies, small and big businesses. That's going to be a job creator like we haven't seen since Ronald Reagan. It's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. Companies will come.
Donald Trump didn't like
they will
Ronald
build,
Reagan.
They will expand. New companies will start. And I look very, very much forward to doing it. We have to
You mean the other way around?
our trade deals, and we have to
Ronald Reagan wasn't very fond of Trump.
No, Trump wasn't fond of Ronald Reagan either. But then again,
he supported Carter, but then he tried to buddy up to him the second time
Well, I think
around.
that trade is an important issue. Of course, we are 5% of the world's population.
Wasn't a bad
we
opening
have to
for
trade
Trump.
with the other 95%. And we need to have smart, fair trade deals. We also, though,
So she
need to
supported
have a
TPP
tax
until she was
system that
against it.
rewards work and not just financial transactions. And the kind of plan that Donald has put forth
and a tax
would
system
be
that rewards work is to punish people for working more.
The most extreme version, the biggest tax cuts for the top % of the people in this country than we've ever.
Did we lose the stream? Damn it. We just got to refresh it. That's one of the biggest myths. By the way, you want to know top 5% if you're earning $210,000 about. I was just looking at the U.S. Census Bureau today. So you need to know the numbers you're defining. You want to raise taxes on families earning $200,000. Let's be clear about that.
And rising incomes. I think we come at it from somewhat different perspectives. I understand that. You know, Donald was very fortunate in his life, and that's all to his benefit. He started his business with $14 million borrowed from his father, and he really believes that the more you help wealthy people, the better off we'll be, and that everything will work out from there. I don't buy that.
So right away, she's the one who goes to misrepresenting him.
He worked really hard.
It's true.
He printed drapery
He did get money from his dad, but he doesn't believe in only giving money to the
wealthy.
wealthy. That's just not true.
And he went down with a silk screen and dumped the paint in and took the squeegee and kept going. And so what I believe is the more we can do for the middle class, the more we can invest in you, your education, your skills,
Hillary, you haven't met a
future,
you in several
the better
decades.
we will be off and the better we'll grow. That's the kind of economy I want us to see again.
Let me follow up with Mr. Trump if I can. You've talked about creating 25 million jobs, and you promised to bring back millions of jobs for Americans. How are we going to bring back the industries that have left this country for cheaper labor overseas? How specifically are you tell American manufacturers that you have to come back?
Well, for one thing,
the stream is up, Austin.
My father gave me a very small loan in 1975, and I built it into a company that's worth many, many billions of dollars.
Well, don't misrepresent either. Several million is not a small loan. I just rather just shoot it straight. Just say, hey, yeah, you know what? Listen, I got millions of dollars, and I turn it into more money. Don't let her hang you on that, Don.
Devaluations and all of these countries all over the world, especially China.
There you go, China. Well, all these countries thus far has only been China and Mexico. All these countries. Latvia? What? Lithuania? Can you? China.
Negotiate our trade deals unless they're taking our jobs, they're giving incentives, they're doing things that, frankly, we don't do. Let me give you the example of Mexico. They have a VAT tax. We're in a different system. When we sell into Mexico,
for those who don't know, VAT tax, talking about value-added tax.
When they sell in automatic, 16% approximately. When they sell into us, there's no tax. It's a defective agreement. It's been defective for a long time, many years, but the politicians haven't done anything about it. Now, in all fairness to Secretary Clinton, yes? Is that okay? Good. I want you to be very happy. It's very important to me. But in all fairness to Secretary Clinton, when she started talking about this, it was really very recently. She's been doing this for 30 years. And why hasn't she made the agreements better? The NAFTA agreement is
what's good for Hillary.
Just because of the tax and
that Donald Trump is taller
because of the fact
than her, because she looks up. And that's what they coach you to do when you have turkey neck like that anyway, is to look up a little bit. So it's a natural defense mechanism for the camera for Hillary. Like, look, see if she's looking down at Donald? But she's looking up. So all this pneumonia tissue, her goiter.
We cannot do it any longer, Lester.
Back to the question, though, how do you specifically bring back jobs, American manufacturers? How do you make them bring the jobs back?
Well, the first thing you do is don't let the jobs leave. The companies are leaving. I could name, there are
how do you not let companies
leave? And they're leaving in bigger numbers than ever. And what
how do you not let them leave?
You say, fine, you want to go to Mexico or some other country, good luck. We wish you a lot of luck. But if you think you're going to make your air conditioners or your cars or your cookies or whatever you make, and bring them into our country without a tax, you're wrong. And once you say you're going to have to tax them coming in, and our politicians never do this, because they have special interests, and the special interests want those companies to leave, because in many cases they own the companies. So what I'm saying is we can stop them from leaving. We have to stop them from leaving, and that's a big, big factor.
Let me let Secretary Clinton.
I know that sounds good, but everyone out there watching this, computer, phone, you can expect a cost skyrocketing of 25, 50%, 200% on all goods and services. All of you do better when businesses are allowed to create a more business-friendly environment. And sometimes there are source materials that just can't be found in the United States. So I'd rather, instead of taxes and tariffs, start off with creating a business-friendly environment in the United States. Start off by lowering the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. Start off with tax incentives, not punishment.
He said back in 2006, gee, I hope it does collapse because then I can go in and buy some and make some money. Well, it did collapse.
That's called business, by the way.
9 million people lost their jobs. 5 million people lost their homes, and $13 trillion in family wealth was wiped out. Now,
I'm checking Twitter
we
here.
have come back from that abyss, and it has not been easy. So we're now on the precipice of having a potentially much better economy, but the last thing we need to do is to go back to the policies that failed us in the first place. Independent experts have looked at what I've proposed and looked at what Donald's proposed, and basically
she's been in the administration for 8 years.
Tax plan,
2 of which were completely unfettered by Democrats. I don't know where this
not
comes
those
from.
policies, but the other ones.
Yeah, the other ones.
Middle-class families compared to the wealthy were to go into effect, we would lose 3.5 million jobs and maybe have another recession. They've looked at my plans and they've said, okay, if we can do this, and I intend to get it done, we will have 10 million more new jobs because we will be making investments where we can grow the economy.
Take clean energy. The strong woman card in a bit. I intend to get it done. That's good. Vagina, overkill. Scale it back.
Donald thinks that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. I think it's real.
I did not.
Oh, come on.
I did not say that.
Oh, come on.
He
never said it's perpetrated by the Chinese. He said a lot of things are perpetrated by the Chinese. He's just not among them.
Deploy 500 million more solar panels.
Think about it.
Bad firecrackers.
Brilliant.
Energy to power every home.
Chips.
We can build a new modern electric grid. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of new economic activity.
Here's one thing they don't talk about. Nearly all of the job growth under Obama, the biggest job creator was fracking, which they fought tooth and nail. Was fracking. And it's also why we have more oil than ever, by the way. We've talked about this. Peak oil, no longer a thing. Because of fracking, we have more oil than ever. And I mean than ever. Not more than we thought. We have access to more oil than ever. And they fought it. And oil is less expensive, more affordable than ever. So,
now look, I'm a great believer in all forms of energy, but we're putting a lot of people out of work. Our energy policies are a disaster. Our country is losing so much in terms of energy, in terms of paying off our debt. You can't do what you're looking to do with $20 trillion in debt. The Obama administration, from the time they've come in, is over 230 years worth of debt, and he's topped it. He's doubled it in a course of almost 8 years.
Someone said add the rule drink when she lies. I don't know if we can handle that.
So I will tell you this.
I think people are just going to be, it's going to be a night of alcohol poisoning.
Better job at keeping our jobs. And we have to do a much better job at giving companies incentive to build new companies or to expand because they're not doing it. And all you have to do is look at Michigan. And look at Ohio, and look at all of
Michigan
these
is a crap hole. Detroit deserves to die. This is that Republican pandering. When they're living it up on Wall Street, they're shutting Detroit down. They should shut both down, both of them. Both of them.
Doing this for 30 years. Why are you just thinking about these solutions right now? For 30 years you've been doing it, and now you're just starting to think of solutions.
Well, actually,
I will bring back jobs. You can't bring back jobs.
Well,
I think that was in the game. Cheers.
I have thought about this quite a bit.
Yeah, for 30 years.
I have, well, not quite that long. I think my husband did a pretty good job in the 1990s. I think a lot about what worked and how we can make it work again.
He's doing a good job with everyone.
New jobs, a balanced budget,
which is the single worst trade deal ever approved in this country.
Incomes went up for everybody. Manufacturing jobs went up also in the 1990s, if we're actually going to look at the facts.
Who cares?
When I was in the Senate,
there are more skilled
I had
jobs
a number
and
of trade deals that came before me, and I held them all to the same test.
And there's plenty of manufacturing. This idea that only manufacering jobs count is silly. And that's the pandering that happens. And that's Donald Trump trying to solidify Michigan, Pennsylvania. Well, he'll not get Michigan, but the Rust Belt. Because it's all about union entitlements. They vote in their own self-interest. Listen, hopefully get you a manufacturing job. But I care about an honest economy that's business-friendly.
Let's not assume
if other skilled trades for college-educated people become available in an increasing amount and manufacturing is less, guess what? I'm okay with that too. And we all should be.
We're going to enforce the trade deals we have, and we're going to hold people accountable. When I was Secretary of State, we actually increased American exports globally 30%.
What's with the sound?
That's actually them,
them
if you
to
believe it.
China,
CNN?
50%. So I
NBC.
know
Well,
how
we'll
to
probably wanna
really
switch feeds
work
then at the
to
break.
get new jobs and to get exports that help to create more new jobs.
Well, you haven't done it in 30 years or 26 years.
Well,
any number you
I've
want to
been
do.
a senator,
You haven't
Donald,
done it.
and
You haven't
I
done
have
it.
been a
And excuse
Secretary
me,
of State, and I have
your
done
husband signed
a lot.
NAFTA, which
Susan
was one
Pryor
of the
says,
worst
Stephen,
things
find
that
out where
ever
Clinton,
happened
when
in
and where Clinton got her
manufacturing
facelift.
That is your
You
opinion.
go
I
to
recognize
New
the
England,
surgery.
you
I'm
go
an
to
OR nurse.
Ohio,
Oh.
Pennsylvania. You
I'll
go
ask her during the
anywhere
break.
you want, Secretary Clinton, and you will see
No, I think you're
devastation
right.
where manufacturing is down 30, 40, sometimes 50%. NAFTA is the worst trade deal maybe ever signed anywhere, but certainly ever signed in this country.
It's smart for him to
Now,
go after on
you
this.
want to approve
You know he's trying to get
Trans-Pacific
Pennsylvania
Partnership.
with this, go
You
after
were
NAFTA
totally
and the
in favor of it.
manufacturing.
Then you heard what I was saying, how bad it is, and you said, I can't win that debate. But you know that if you did win, you would approve that, and that will be almost as bad as NAFTA. Nothing will ever top NAFTA.
That is just not accurate. I was against it once it was finally negotiated and the terms were laid out. I wrote about that in...
You called it the gold standard.
Well, I hope...
You called it the gold standard of trade deals. You
you know
said it's
what?
the finest deal you've ever seen.
No.
And then you heard what I said about it, and all of a sudden you were against it.
Well, Donald, I know you live in your own reality, but
Oh, yeah.
that is not the facts. The facts are, I did say I hoped it would be a good deal, but when it was negotiated, which I was not responsible for, I concluded it wasn't. I wrote about that.
So is it President Obama's fault? Is it President
To be fair, that
Obama's
is
fault?
true.
Announced.
For
Look,
what Hillary
there
said.
are
Secretary, is it
different-
President
Deals
Obama's
change, and then you
fault?
say, well,
There
I
are
was for it
because
then,
he's
I'm not
pushing
for it
it.
now.
There are different views about what's good for our country, our economy, and our leadership
Smart of
in
Trump
the
to
world.
get her to throw Obama
And
under the
I
bus,
think it's
though.
important to look
That's a smart
at what
maneuver.
we need to do to get the economy going again. That's why I said new jobs with rising incomes, investments, not in more tax cuts that would add $5 trillion to the debt.
But you have no plan.
Oh, I do.
Secretary,
in fact,
you
I
have no
written
plan.
a book about it.
What do you think?
It's
You think this is
called
playing
Stronger
well
Together.
with the
You can
public
pick
for
it up
Trump, or do you think
tomorrow
he's going to look like a bully?
I
or
think-
at an airport near you.
Tweet me at S. Crowder. What do you think, Jerry?
So far, I'm liking it. He's sticking there to he's going after issues,
Sustained growth.
which is something.
We also have to look at
in
how
fairness,
we
in
help
primary
families
debates we haven't
balance
seen.
the responsibilities at home and the responsibilities at business. So we have a very robust set of plans, and people who have looked at both of our plans have concluded that mine would create 10 million jobs and yours would lose us 3.5 million jobs and explode
You are
the
going
debt,
to approve one of
which
the biggest
would
tax
have
cuts
a
in
recession.
history. You are going to approve one of the biggest tax increases in history. You are going to
catch himself.
drive
He said tax
business
cuts.
out. Your regulations are a disaster, and you're going to increase regulations all over the place. And by the way, my tax cut is the biggest since Ronald Reagan. I'm very proud of it. It will create tremendous numbers of new jobs. But regulations, you are going to regulate these businesses out of existence. When I go around, Lester, I tell you this, I've been all over. And when I go around, despite the tax
That counts as
cut,
let me tell you.
the things that businesses and people like the most is the fact that I'm cutting regulation. You have regulations on top of regulations, and new companies cannot form, and old companies are going out of business, and you want to increase the regulations and make them even worse. I'm going to cut regulations, but I'm going to cut taxes big league, and you're going to raise taxes big league. End of story.
Let me get you to pause right there, because we're going to move into the next segment. We're going to talk taxes.
That can't be left
Please
to
just
stand.
take 30 seconds, then we're
I
going to go
kind
on.
of assumed that there would be a lot of these charges and claims. And so we have taken the homepage of my website, HillaryClinton.com, and we've turned it into a fact checker. So if you want to see in real time
That's a smart move.
what the facts are, please go and take a look.
Be better if she had facts.
And take a look at mine also. and
Not
you'll see.
add a penny
Fact checkers
to
right now are
the
going,
debt.
hey, how is that one a lie?
Plans would
No,
add $5
shit.
trillion
shit.
to the debt.
Wikipedia?
What I
Got it.
proposed would cut regulations and streamline them for small businesses.
Oh,
What I
shut
have
up.
proposed
You can't do
would be
that.
paid
You can't do it for small
by
businesses. You either do it, you're either
raising
business friendly or you're
taxes
not.
on the wealthy, because they have made all the gains in the economy.
All the gains in the economy?
It's time that the wealthy and corporations
She was against the
pay
gays in the
their fair
economy until
share
she
to
was for
support
them.
business.
Just over the next segment.
Well, could I just? I think I should. You go to her website and you take a look at her website. She's going to raise taxes $1.3 trillion.
Mr. Trump,
and look at her website. You know what? It's no different than this. She's telling us how to fight ISIS. Just go to her website. She tells you how to fight ISIS on her website. I don't think General Douglas MacArthur would like that too much.
The next segment, we're continuing the subject of...
Well, at least I have a plan to fight ISIS.
No, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do.
No, we're not.
See, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do. No wonder you've been fighting. No wonder you've been fighting ISIS your entire adult life.
Go to the fact checkers. Get to work.
You are unpacking a lot here, and we're still in the issue of
adult
achieving
life.
prosperity.
Wildly untrue, but very funny.
Very funny.
The fundamental difference between the two of you concerns the wealthy. Secretary Clinton, you're calling for
I would just love it if
tax
Donald Trump
increase
looked to
the
Lester
wealthiest
and amidst one of his rants said,
Now, Lester, what the hell are you anyway? What are you? What are you? You black? What are you? You Hawaii? You Samoan? You Samoan?
Next 2-minute answer goes to you, Mr.
Well, I'm really calling for major jobs because the wealthy are going to create tremendous jobs. They're going to expand their companies. They're going to do a tremendous job. I'm getting rid of the carried interest provision, and if you really look, it's not a tax.
Oh, really?
It's really not
I thought he was
great
keeping
thing
carried
for the
interest
wealthy.
last
It's
time I
a great
checked.
thing for middle class.
Seriously, I'm not saying that to be a
It's
smart
great
ass.
thing
Someone
for
can tweet me at a
companies to
Scrutter. I thought he was
expand.
keeping the carried
And when
interest
these people
provision.
are going to put billions and billions of dollars into companies.
Damn it, NBC. We have a good round trip on our internet?
We do. But we have Comcast, so they're screwing themselves.
$2.5 trillion back from overseas where they can't bring the money back because politicians like Secretary Clinton won't allow them to bring the money back because the taxes are so onerous and the bureaucratic red tape. So what is so bad? So what they're doing is they're leaving our country, and they're, believe it or not, leaving because taxes are too high and because some of them have lots of money outside of our country. And instead of bringing it back and putting the money to work because they can't work out a deal to, and everybody agrees it should be brought back. Instead of that, they're leaving our country to get their money because they can't bring their money back into our country because of bureaucratic red tape, because they can't get together. Because we have a president that can't
Apparently
sit
Trump's
them around
website
the
is
table
down.
and get them to approve something. And here's the thing. Republicans and Democrats agree that this should be done. $2.5 trillion. I happen to think it's double that. It's probably $5 trillion that we can't bring into our country, Lester. And with a little leadership, you'd get it in here very quickly, and it could be put to use on the inner cities and lots of other things, and it would be beautiful. But we have no leadership. And honestly, that starts with Secretary Clinton.
All right, you have 2 minutes on the same question to defend tax increases on the wealthiest Americans, Secretary Clinton.
I have a feeling that by the end of this evening, I'm going to be blamed for everything that's ever happened.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, why not? You know, just join the debate by saying more crazy things. Now, let me say
there's
good
nothing
one.
Crazy
is
about not letting our companies bring their money back into their country.
This is Secretary Clinton's 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, well, let's start the clock again, Lester. We've looked at your
I'll pay you for
tax
it later.
proposals. I don't see changes in the corporate tax
Lester, I
rates
hear you
or
like them thick, correct?
the kinds of proposals you're referring to
It's
that
used,
would
but low
cause the
miles.
repatriation, bringing back of money that's stranded overseas. I happen to
Then you didn't
support
read
that.
it.
I happen to support that in a way that will actually work to our benefit. But when I look at what you have proposed, you have what is called now the Trump loophole, because it would so advantage you and the business you do. You've proposed an approach that has a $4 billion
I can picture it in the earphones. Trump loophole, Trump loophole. What is that?
And when you
Go
look
it, mix
at
them up.
what you are
much?
proposing, it is,
Lester, how much?
as I said, trumped up, trickle down. Trickle down did not work.
The buzzword doesn't
it
work
got
here.
us into
Sorry,
the
sweetheart.
mess we were in 2008 and 9. Slashing
No, I'm
taxes
talking to bad
on the
Hillary.
wealthy hasn't worked.
Good
and
Hillary's
a
asking
lot
if I'm
of
talking to her.
really smart,
Mrs.
wealthy
Crowder.
people know that. And they are saying, hey, we need to do more to make the contributions we should be making to rebuild the middle class. I don't think top-down works in America. I think building the middle class, investing in the middle class,
particularly don't want your top-down. Just
making
keep it
college
right where it
debt-free
is.
so more young people can get their education, helping people refinance their debt from college at a lower rate. Those are the kinds of things that will really boost the economy. Broad-based, inclusive growth is what we need in America.
Oh, is that not on purpose?
Not more
No, I don't think so, Stephen.
for people at the very top.
Mr. Trump,
Typical politician, all talk, no action, sounds good, doesn't work, never going to happen. Our country is suffering because people like Secretary Clinton have made such bad decisions in terms of our jobs and in terms of what's going on.
She's not aware of what she's working with here.
We have the worst revival of an economy since the Great Depression. And believe me, we're in a bubble right now. And the only thing that looks good is the stock market. But if you raise interest rates even a little bit, that's going to come crashing down. We are in a big, fat, ugly bubble. And we better be awfully careful. And we have a Fed that's doing political things. This Janet Yellen of the Fed.
Stream quality is better than Fox.
The Fed is doing political by keeping the interest rates at this level. And believe me, the day Obama goes off and he leaves and he goes out to the golf course for the rest of his life to play golf, when they raise interest rates, you're going to see some very bad things happen because the Fed is not doing their job. The Fed is being more political than Secretary Clinton.
Mr. Trump, we're talking about the burden that Americans have to pay, yet you have not released your tax returns. And the reason nominees have released their returns for decades is so that voters will know if their potential president,
even if I was a fan, she just has one of those grins that you just want to kick the shit out of.
Any business conflicts. Don't Americans have a right to know if there are any conflicts of interest?
I don't mind releasing. I'm under a routine audit, and it'll be released. And as soon as the audit's finished, it'll be released. But you will learn more about Donald Trump by going down to the federal elections, where I filed a 104-page essentially financial statement of sorts, the forms that they have.
He has nothing to gain by releasing those.
In fact, the income.
No, there's no good way for Donald Trump to release taxes now.
Is filed at $694 million for this past year. $694 million. If you would have told me I was going to make that 15 or 20 years ago,
Novotny has asked me Trump so far, thumbs up or thumbs down. Thumbs up.
When we have a country that's doing so badly, that's being ripped off by every single country in the world.
China and Mexico.
It's the kind of thinking that our country needs because everybody, Lester, we have a trade deficit with all of the countries that we do business with of almost $800 billion a year. You know what that is? That means who's negotiating these trade deals? We have people that are political hacks negotiating our trade deals.
The IRS says of your taxes, you're perfectly free to release your taxes during an audit. And so the question, does the public's right to know outweigh your personal?
Well, I told you, I will release them as soon as the audit. Look, I've been under audit almost for 15 years.
Everyone should be disappointed.
I know a lot of wealthy people that have never
I'm
been
disappointed in me, but also a little proud.
I get audited almost every year. And in a way, I should be complaining. I'm not even complaining. I don't mind it. It's almost become a way of life. I get audited by the IRS, but other people don't. I will say this. We have a situation in this country that has to be taken care of. I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes. When she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted, as soon as she releases them, I will release my tax returns, and that's against my lawyers. They say don't do it. I will tell you this. No, in fact, watching shows.
Are these reputable as his doctor?
I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump says
it's his lawyer's doctor.
You don't release your returns until the audit's complete. When the audit's complete, I'll do it. But I would go against them if she releases her email.
So it's negotiable?
It's not negotiable. No, let her release the email. Why did she delete 33,000?
Well, I'll let her ask that, but let me just admonish the audience one more time. There was an agreement. We did ask
especially when you sign up to every Weight Loss newsletter.
Secretary
Country.
Well, I think you've just seen another example of bait and switch here.
And MyFitT.
For 40 years, everyone running for president has released their tax returns. You can go and see nearly, I think, 39, 40 years of our tax returns, but everyone has done it. We know the IRS has made clear there is no prohibition on releasing it when you're under audit. So you've got to ask yourself,
uncharted territory.
Why won't he release his tax returns? And I think there may be a couple of reasons. First, maybe he's not as rich as he says he is. Second, maybe he's not as charitable as he claims to be. Third, we don't know all of his business dealings, but we have been told through investigative reporting that he owes about $650 million to Wall Street and foreign banks. Or maybe he doesn't want the American people, all of you watching tonight,
went there. You are knocking at the gates of hell, sweetheart.
In federal taxes, because the only years that anybody's ever seen were a couple of years when he had to turn them over to state authorities when he was trying to get a casino license, and they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax. So
That makes
if
me
he's
smart.
paid zero, that means zero for troops, zero for vets, zero for schools or health. And I think probably he's not all that enthusiastic about having the rest of our country see what the real reasons are, because it must be something really important, even terrible, that he's trying to hide. And the financial disclosure statement, they don't give you the tax rate.
I am
They don't
surprised.
give
Give
you
that to
all
Jane.
the details that tax returns
Well, then put
would.
it downstairs.
And it just seems to me that
My wife doesn't
this
trust
is
it.
something
Beer
that
goes
the
another
American
beer.
people deserve to see. And
she's getting
I have
very personal.
no reason to believe that.
And he's holding her feet to the
he's
fire
ever
on the
going to
issues, which
release
I will say,
his
it
That's the
surprised
reverse.
me.
That's a little bit of a
because
surprise
there's
reversal.
something he's hiding.
I really wish I
Reversals
could
are-
support him more if I
He's
didn't know that he was going to
guessing at what it
guaranteed
might be that
audit
he's
us for
hiding.
doing silly
But
impressions.
I think the
I'm so
question is,
conflicted.
were
Yeah.
we
All the
ever
people in his
to get
cabinet
near the
hate
White
us
House,
for jokes.
What would
Yep.
be those conflicts? Who does he owe money to? Well, he owes you the answers to that, and he should provide them.
He also raised the issue of your
Good play
emails.
on
You wanna
words. So
respond to that?
clever.
I do. You know, I made a mistake using a private email.
That's for sure.
And if I had to do it over again, I would obviously do it differently. But I'm not going to make any excuses. It was a mistake, and I take responsibility for that.
Nothing between between the two ferns that Zach Galifianakis can't fix.
That was more
Yeah,
than
exactly.
a mistake. That was done purposely. Okay, that was not a mistake. That was done purposely. When you have your staff taking the Fifth Amendment, taking the Fifth, so they're
pleading
not
the Fifth,
prosecuted. When you have the man that set up the illegal server taking the Fifth, I think it's disgraceful. And believe me, this country thinks it's disgraceful. It really thinks it's disgraceful also.
Oh, you caught
as
that
far as
word,
my
Whisker.
tax returns, you don't learn that much from tax returns, that I can tell you. You learn a lot from financial disclosure. And you should go down and take a look at that. The other thing, I'm extremely underleveraged. The report that said 650, which, by the way, a lot of friends of mine that know my business said, boy, that's really not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money relative to what I had. The buildings that were in question, they said in the same report, which was actually wasn't even a bad story, to be honest with you, but the buildings are worth $3.9 billion. And the 650 isn't even on that. But it's not 650. It's much less than that. But I could give you a list of banks. I would, if that would help you, I would give you a list of banks. These are very fine institutions, very fine banks. I could do that very quickly. I am very underleveraged.
Will he
I have
do
a
it?
great
'Cause people will
company.
ask him.
I have a tremendous
Yeah.
income.
And then if he doesn't
and
do
the
it,
reason I say that is not
that's
in
the
a
kind of stuff where he
braggadocious
paints
way.
himself
It's
in a
because
corner that he doesn't need to
it's
do while he's
about
winning.
time that this country had somebody running it that has an idea about money. Where we have $20 trillion
money,
in
money.
debt, and our country's
Money.
a mess. You know, it's one thing to have $20 trillion in debt, and our roads are good, and our bridges are good, and everything's in great
Just
shape.
ask Chris
Our
Christie.
airports are like from a third world country. You land at
There's
LaGuardia,
someone said,
you land at
"Red,
Kennedy, you
hey,
land at
five,
LAX, you
oh,
land at
five."
Newark. And you come in from Dubai and Qatar, and you see these incredible.
Qatar,
You come in
Clock Boy.
from China.
Suing
you see
Ben
these
Shapiro.
incredible
Suing Ben
airports.
Shapiro.
That's the funniest
And
stuff.
you land,
I'm sorry, Ben, not
we
to make
become
light
a
of it.
third world
But
country.
that was-
But it's pretty freaking
when I
hilarious.
read it,
Worst
I
of
thought it
all
was a
things has
sketch.
happened. We owe $20 trillion, and we're a mess. We haven't even started. And we've spent $6 trillion in the Middle East, according to a report that I just saw, whether it's 6 or 5, but it looks like it's 6. $6 trillion in the Middle East. We could have rebuilt our country twice. And it's really a shame. And it's politicians like Secretary Clinton that have caused this problem. Our country has tremendous problems. We're a debtor nation. We're a serious debtor nation. And we have a country that needs new roads, new tunnels, new bridges, new
Hey, did you realize they
airports, new
reversed? They
schools,
swapped?
new
She's in the
hospitals.
red. He's got the blue tie.
And we
I
don't
did.
have the money because it's been squandered on so many of your ideas.
What's your
And
response?
maybe
Red matches her
because you
face.
haven't paid any federal income tax for a lot of years. And the other thing I think is important
It
to
would be
point out
squandered too,
is
believe me.
if your main claim to be president of the United States is your business, then I think we should talk about that.
Your main claim is you
know,
killed
your
four
campaign
guys.
manager said that you
To be
built
fair, that's harder than
a
it
lot
seems.
of businesses on the backs of little guys. And indeed, I have met a lot of the people who were stiffed
Someone's gonna call her
by you
mid-break.
and your businesses.
Hey,
Donald.
Hillary?
I've
No.
met
Click.
dishwashers, painters, architects, glass installers, marble installers,
What?
drapery installers, like my dad
Like
was.
42 votes in the
Who
country.
you
A guy named
refused to
Luigi who's
pay
laying
when
marble.
they
Ah,
finished
she's
the
just
work
like me.
that you asked them to do.
I'm just
We
like
have an
the Hillary.
architect in the audience who designed one of your clubhouses at one of your golf courses. It's a beautiful facility. It immediately was put to use.
Hillary's going to have to use the
and
facilities at the commercial break, no
what
doubt.
The man needed to be paid what he was charging.
Maybe he didn't do a good job, and I was unsatisfied with his work.
Boom!
Which our country should do too.
But that's what needs to happen in Michigan, Donald, with the unions and the cars and GM. People are unsatisfied with American cars. Let's not punish the companies for trying to improve.
Apology from
a lot of them
someone
suck.
who has taken their labor,
Buy a Honda.
taken the goods that they produced, and then refused to pay them. I can only say that I'm certainly relieved that my late father never did business with you. He provided a good middle-class life for us, but the people he worked for, he expected the bargain to be kept on both sides.
How do you feel about rapists like your husband?
About your
Was
business,
your dad
you've taken
on the fence?
Business bankruptcy 6 times. There are a lot of great business people that have never taken bankruptcy once. You call yourself the king of debt. You talk about leverage. You even at one time suggested that you would try to negotiate down the national debt of the United States. Well, sometimes there's not a direct transfer
She's not fluid enough.
Of skills from business
Probably because she needs to consume more. It
but
takes
sometimes
its toll
what
on ammonia.
happened
Get
in
that world of
business
Gatorade.
is
Still trying
really
to
bad for
Maybe
government.
a G2.
Stay
And
on
we
a
need
track.
to be
G2. She needs
very
watch
clear
calories.
about that.
Look, it's all words. It's all sound bites. I built an unbelievable company. Some of the greatest assets anywhere in the world.
Actually, I do think Donald Trump has made more money off of
the United States and Europe,
his celebrity
lots of different places.
than real estate.
It's
if you
an
actually just talk
unbelievable
about
company.
cash flow.
But
Mark Cuban's
on
probably right.
occasion,
Hillary Clinton probably has
4
more cash
times,
than Donald Trump.
We used certain
Doesn't mean he's not a good
laws
businessman.
that are there.
But that's
And
why
when
Hillary Clinton is willing
Secretary
to go
Clinton
to guns
talks
on that.
about people that didn't get paid.
It's also why she has the dough to
First of
spend,
all,
what,
they
$300
did
million
get
in
paid
ads
a
against
lot,
her?
But taking advantage of the laws of the nation. Now, if you want to change the laws, you've been there a long time, change the laws. But I take advantage of the laws of the nation because I'm running a company. My obligation right now is to do well for myself, my family, my employees, for my companies. And that's what I do. But what she doesn't say is the tens of thousands of people that are
doing it the right way.
Unbelievably happy and that love me.
I'm not saying Trump hasn't, but I think he would do better to talk about that and the people he's helped and the jobs he's created than taking advantage of the laws.
So
I don't
if
think that'll
get
play
there
well
one way,
nationally.
I'm going to get to Pennsylvania Avenue and nothing. But we're opening the old post office under budget, ahead of schedule, saved tremendous money. I'm a year ahead of schedule. And that's what this country should be doing. We build
Can I just say
roads
one
and they
thing?
cost
My beard
2 and
line
3
looks
and 4 times what
fantastic.
they're supposed
I
to
don't know
cost.
what length
good
this is.
in
It
that.
looks
products
like
from
G.I.
military,
Joe.
and they come
It
in at
does.
costs that are so far above
Look at
what
this.
they
Here,
were
look.
supposed to be.
I bet you
because
didn't think you'd get this in
we
the
don't
live
have
stream.
people that know what
Huh?
they're doing. When we look
going
at
Bob
the budget,
Ross.
the budget is
Whoa.
bad to a large
Oh,
extent.
yeah, we
because
lost the
we
stream.
have people that have no idea as to what to do and how
Can we
to
get this
buy.
out as a screenshot, Jared?
The Trump
Yeah, should.
International
I'm gonna-
is way under budget and way ahead of schedule.
And we just lost
should be
3,000
able to
subscribers.
do that for our
Well, we're
Ooh,
well
gained
behind
5,000.
schedule, so I want to move to our next segment. We move into our
And
next
they're
segment
all in
talking
West
about
Hollywood.
America's direction, and let's start by talking about race. The share of
Of
Americans
course,
who
Lester.
say race relations are bad.
It's always
in this
about
country is
race
the
with
highest it's
you,
been in
Lester.
decades. Much of it amplified by shootings of African Americans by police, as we've seen
Whoever
recently in
named him must have been
Charlotte and
white.
Tulsa. Race has been a big issue in this campaign, and one of you is going to have to bridge a very wide and bitter gap. So how do you heal the divide? Secretary Clinton, you get 2 minutes on this.
Well, you're right. Race remains a significant challenge in our country. Unfortunately, race still determines too much. Often determines where people live,
Tell you what,
determines
this race isn't looking good for you.
what kind of education in their public schools they can get, and yes, it determines how they're treated in the criminal justice system. We've just seen those 2 tragic
Lester Holt
examples
is shaking
in
like
both Tulsa
his head like he
and
knows what he's
Charlotte.
talking about. Yes, as a
I'm tracking.
as a Negro American, I
I am following
We have to
precisely.
Restore trust
feel you. Who named you, Lester?
between
White priest, but still.
communities and the police. We have to work to make sure
Watch,
that
you're
our
gonna get some
police
comments like, why so much ad
are
hominem?
using the best
What else are you
training,
gonna
the
do with
best
this?
techniques.
That's we told
that
you. There's
they're
no script. There's no outline for
well
the show. It's
to
very silly
use
tonight.
Force only
And the beers
when
are flowing.
necessary.
Like mead.
Everyone should be respected by the law, and everyone should respect the law.
Ah,
Right now,
really?
that's not the case in a lot of our
Yes,
neighborhoods.
we know.
So I have, ever since
You don't
the first
say.
day of my campaign, called for criminal justice reform. I've laid out a
first.
platform that I think would begin to remedy some of the problems we have in the criminal justice system. But we also have to recognize, in addition to the
Hillary Clinton
challenges that we face with policing, there are so many good, brave police officers who
she's going to make that argument.
Reform.
She's the example of being treated unfairly well because she's a white, privileged politician.
Goal. And we've got to get guns
You'd have been
out
fired
of the
from
hands
this
of people
job for
who should
hiding
not
emails.
have them.
Oh, guns. Okay.
Gun epidemic is the leading cause of death
Should have
of
said
young
pandemic.
African American men, more than the next 9 causes put together. So we have to do two things, as I said.
The
We have to restore trust. We have to work with the police. We have to make sure they respect the communities and the communities respect them. And we have to tackle the plague of gun violence, which is a big contributor to a lot of the problems that we're seeing today.
All right, Mr. Trump, you have 2 minutes.
The
How do you heal the
locust
divide?
of the gun.
Well, first of all,
The bloody
Secretary
river
Clinton
and firstborn
doesn't
death
want to
of the
use
guns.
a couple of words, and that's law and order. We need law and order. If we don't have it, we're not going to have a country. And when I look at what's going on in Charlotte, a city I love, a city where I have investments, when I look at what's going on throughout various parts of our country, whether it's, I mean, I can just keep naming them all day long. We need law and order in our country. And I just got today, as you know, the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police. We just came in. We have endorsements from, I think, almost every police group, a large percentage of them in the United States. We have a situation where we have our inner cities, African Americans, Hispanics, are living in hell because it's so dangerous. You walk down the street, you get shot.
Because it's so hot.
In Chicago,
where they live,
they've had thousands of shootings, thousands, since January 1st.
They have thousands?
Thousands of shootings.
I thought it was in the hundreds.
And I'm saying, where is this? Is this a war-torn country? What are we doing?
Sure.
And we have to stop the violence. We have to bring back law and order. In a place like Chicago, where thousands of people have been killed, thousands over the last number of years. In fact, almost 4,000 have been killed since Barack Obama became president. Almost 4,000 people in Chicago have been killed.
To be fair, half of those were just Rahm Emanuel poking them in the shower, and they slipped.
Now, whether or not in a place like Chicago you do stop and frisk, which worked very well, Mayor Giuliani is here, it worked very well in New York. It brought the crime rate way down.
Democrats said it was racist.
The gun away from criminals that shouldn't be having it.
Like Hillary Clinton.
We have gangs roaming the street, and in many cases they're illegally here, illegal immigrants, and they have guns and they shoot people. And we have to be very strong, and we have to be very vigilant. We have to know what we're doing. Right
they do so many things that are frankly
in many
not
cases,
nice. Not very
afraid
nice.
to do anything. We have to protect our inner cities because African American communities are being decimated by crime.
Your 2 minutes has expired, but I do want to follow up. Stop and frisk was ruled unconstitutional in New York because it largely singled out black and Hispanic young men.
No, you're wrong. It went.
Here's something too. I'll talk about this in this week's show.
Who was a very against
If you want to fix this, get rid of the police unions and the quotas. They have quotas for how many civilian interactions they have to have. So guess what? If you're a policeman and you have to have 10 civilian interactions that night, if you're a betting man, you're just going to pick the Latino and the black guy because they're more likely to commit crime. That's what happens with a lot of police because the unions put a quota on them to create more revenue because of baseline budgeting. And no one wants to talk about that.
These are people that are bad people that shouldn't be. When you have 3,000 shootings in Chicago from January 1st, when you have 4,000 people killed in Chicago by guns from the beginning of the presidency of Barack Obama, his hometown, you have to have stop and frisk. You need more police. You need a better community relation. You don't have good community relations in Chicago. It's terrible. I have property there. It's terrible what's going on in Chicago. But when you look, and Chicago's not
it's
the
terrible,
but
that sounds like a Crowder
so many
sketch.
Different places. You need better relationships. I agree with Secretary Clinton on this. You need better relationships between the communities and the police because in some cases it's not good. But you look at Dallas where the relationships were really studied. The relationships were really a beautiful thing. And then 5 police officers were killed one night very violently. So there's some bad things going on, some really bad things.
Secretary Clinton,
but we
what's
need,
the point
listen,
there, though?
We
He
need
didn't come
law
around
and
to a
order.
point.
And
Yeah.
we need law and order in the inner cities. Because the people
Here's the thing,
that are
Donald
most
Trump, you can tell on
affected by
this,
what's happening
doesn't
are
really know where he's going with it. And here's the
African-American
problem with
and
Donald
Hispanic
Trump on
people,
these
and it's
things.
very unfair
Not saying he
to
couldn't
them
correct it
what
and get
our
it right. He
politicians
hasn't thought it
are
through,
allowing to
and he
happen.
said something,
Well,
but then he'll double
heard,
down and
I've heard Donald say
stick to
this,
it,
at
as
his
opposed to
rallies,
just,
and
I meant to say this.
it's
Yeah.
really unfortunate that he paints such a dire, negative picture of black communities in our country. You know, the vibrancy of the black church, the
Black church. Is that where she
employ
buys
so
her
many
hot sauce?
people,
Hot
the
sauce.
opportunities that so many families are working to
Yeah, it's
provide
Jared's
for
chips. They
their
smell like
kids.
pumpkin farts.
There's a lot that
Not
we
even
should
close.
be proud of and we should be supporting and lifting up.
Nope.
But
Black
we
communities
do
suck.
always have to make sure we keep people safe. There are the right ways of doing
Sorry,
it, and then
black
there
communities
are
in the
ways
inner cities
that
in
are
Chicago, Detroit, they're
ineffective.
bad.
Stop
Sorry,
and
they're
frisk
bad for black
was
people.
found to be unconstitutional. And
I don't
in
care if there's a
part
nice
because
choir
it
at a
was
church.
Ineffective. It did not do what it needed to do. Now, I believe in community policing.
Little known fact.
And in fact,
Rudy Giuliani
violent
decreasing crime in
is
New York by
one
so
half
much.
Of what it was in
Almost
1991.
single-handedly decreased the
Property
crime rate under
crime
Clinton
is
for which he
down
took credit.
40%.
He decreased crime
We just
so
don't wanna
much
see
in New
it
York
creep
City
back up.
that it made
We've
Clinton look
had
good nationally.
25 years of very good cooperation, but there were some problems, some unintended consequences. Too many young African American and Latino men ended up in jail for nonviolent offenses. And it's just a fact that if you're a young African American man and you do the same thing as a young white man, you are more likely to be arrested, charged, convicted, and incarcerated. So we've got to address the systemic racism in our criminal justice system. We cannot just say law and order. We have to say we have to come forward with a plan that is going to divert people from the criminal justice system, deal with mandatory minimum sentences, which have put too many people away for too long for doing too little. We need to have more second chance programs. I'm glad that we're ending private prisons in the federal system. I want to see them ended in the state system. You shouldn't have a profit motivation to fill prison cells with young Americans. So there are some positive ways we can work on this. And I believe strongly that common sense gun safety measures would assist us
she
right
switched it
now.
from reform.
And this
Her
is
poll
something
said use the
Donald
word safety.
supported. Along with the gun lobby,
She can only go
right
down that
now,
route so long with her
we've got
husband.
too
See
many
like this? Fingers
military-style
off the
weapons on the
triggers. That's
streets.
nice
In a
and
lot of
safe.
places, our police are outgunned.
Ouch,
we need
ouch,
comprehensive
ouch. Just kidding.
background checks, and we need to keep guns out of the hands of those who will do harm. And we finally need to
Like your
pass
henchmen.
a prohibition on anyone who's on the terrorist watch list from being able to buy a gun
Oh, what,
in
like
our
Stephen
country. If you're
Hayes,
too
like Ted
dangerous
Kennedy?
to fly,
This is the thing,
you
so
are too
stupid, and it
dangerous to buy
sounds
a
good. We're
gun.
like, oh,
So there are
terrorist?
things
Anyone
we
can be put
do,
on that
and we
list.
ought to do it
And
in
there's
a
no
bipartisan
recourse, there's no way to
Secretary,
appeal.
Last week you said we've got to do everything possible
She's
to
president, how
improve
much you want to bet I'm on
policing
that
to
list?
go right at implicit bias. Do you believe that police are implicitly biased against black people?
Lester, I think implicit bias is a problem for everyone, not just police. I think, unfortunately, too many of us in our great country jump to conclusions about each other. And therefore, I think we need all of us to be asking hard questions about, you know, why am I feeling this way? But when it comes to policing, since it can have literally fatal consequences, I have said in my first budget we would
I was asking, yeah, we'll read
put
some
money
tweets during
into
the
that
commercial break.
budget to help us deal with implicit bias by retraining a lot of our police officers. I've met with a group of very distinguished, experienced police chiefs a few weeks ago. They admit it's an issue. They've got a lot of concerns. Mental health is one of the biggest concerns because now police are having to handle a lot of really difficult mental health problems on the street. They want
So are we
support.
supposed to believe
they
that more
want
people
more
have become
training.
mentally
they want
unfit?
more assistance. And I think the federal
Recently?
government
Yeah.
could be in a position.
How is that
where
an all of
we
a sudden
would, offer
epidemic,
and
especially
provide
when
that.
mental health
I'd like to respond.
mental health care should be as
First
efficient
of
as
all,
ever? I don't
agree,
understand that.
And a lot of people, even within my own party, want to give certain rights to people on watch lists and no-fly lists. I agree with you. When a person is on a watch list or a no-fly list, and I have the endorsement of the NRA, which I'm very proud of.
Don't do it, Donald.
Very, very good
Don't
people
do this.
in there protecting the Second Amendment. But I think we have to look very strongly at no-fly lists and watch lists. And when people are on there, even if they shouldn't be on there, we'll help them. We'll help them legally. We'll help them get off. But I tend to agree with that quite strongly. I do want to bring up the fact that you were the one that brought up the word super predator.
Caved. That's a big one.
Young black youth. And that's a term that I think was it's been horribly met, as you know. I think you've apologized for it. But I think it was a terrible thing to say. And when it comes to stop and frisk, you're talking about taking guns away.
That's as bad of a gaffe as it gets,
taking guns away from gangs and people that use them.
No-fly list.
He did throw in there helping people get off of it, which could cover him a little bit, but that's the soundbite.
You don't take someone's rights away if they're wrongly on a list. You don't get to do that. You don't get to take someone's rights away.
We had 2,200 murders, and stop and frisk brought it down to 500 murders. 500 murders is a lot of murders. Hard to believe. 500 is like supposed to be good. But we went from 2,200 to 500, and it was continued on by Mayor Bloomberg, and it was terminated by current mayor. But stop and frisk had a tremendous impact on the safety of New York City, tremendous beyond belief. So when you say it has no impact, it really did. It had a very, very big impact.
Well, it's also
a lot of
fair
people
to say,
pissed on the no-fly list thing. A lot of people saying, I was with him. I was with him.
Murders. So there is.
Wrong. You're wrong.
No, I'm not.
Murders are up. All right, you check.
New York has done, and I give credit across the board, going back to mayors, to police chiefs, because it has worked, and other communities need to come together to do what will work as well. Look, one murder is too many.
Yeah, people are really mad about the no-fly list deal. Everyone is pissed about that. Everyone is pissed about that.
And not go to things that sound good that really did not
Houston
have
Bible
the kind
says
of
that's the sound you hear of thousands of gun owners banging their heads against the wall.
Who disagrees with keeping neighborhoods safe? But let's also add, no one should disagree about respecting the rights of young men who live in those neighborhoods. And so we need to do a better job of working again with the communities, faith communities, business communities, as well as the police to try to deal with this problem.
This conversation is about race, and so, Mr. Trump, I have to ask you.
But I'd like to just respond, if I might.
Please, 20 seconds.
I'd just like to respond.
Please respond, then I've got to follow up.
Look, the African-American community
Lester
has been let down by our politicians.
Okay.
They talk good around
I would love if
election
he's
like
right
now.
now. Can I respond?
And
Can I
after the
respond?
election,
Wait a damn minute!
See you later. I'll see you in 4
Wait
years.
a damn minute!
The African
Full-on ghetto, like that report. Remember what happened at Augusta High?
Within the inner cities has been so badly treated.
Why am I over Hillary's face?
It's for the betterment of everybody.
To get votes by Democrat
Hold on a second.
Because that's what it is. They've controlled these communities for up to 100 years.
Mr. Trump, let me...
Unbroken. And I will tell you, you look at the inner cities, and I just left Detroit, and I just left Philadelphia, and I just, you've seen me. I've been all over the place.
Don't go there, Ian.
You decided
You'll
to
never
stay
get out.
home, and that's okay. But I will tell you, I've been all over, and I've met some of the greatest people I'll ever meet within these communities.
Let me fix her hair.
And they are very upset with what their politicians have told them and what their politicians have done.
Mr. Trump,
I think Donald just criticized me for preparing for this debate. And yes, I did. And you know what else I prepared for? I prepared to be president. And I think that's a good thing.
Mr. Trump, for 5 years, you perpetuated a false claim that the nation's
That'll
first
go over
black
really well at a
president
women's
was not
book
a
club.
natural
Wait, here we go.
citizen. You questioned his legitimacy. In the last couple of weeks,
she did.
You acknowledged what
was the
most
first one.
Americans have accepted for years. The president was born in the United States. Can you tell us what took you so long?
I'll tell you just very simple to say. Sidney Blumenthal works for the campaign and very close friend of Secretary Clinton. And her campaign manager, Patty Doyle,
Stick it back on her.
went to
when he doesn't really know somebody, he overemphasizes his name.
Against
Patty Doyle.
President Obama fought very hard.
Very close.
And you can go look it up, and you can check it out. And if you look at
Why
CNN,
does he sound like your
this
Jew in the
past
Hitler video?
week, Patty
dear.
was on Wolf Blitzer saying that this happened. Blumenthal sent McClatchy, highly respected reporter at McClatchy, to Kenya to find out about it. They were pressing it very hard. She failed to get the birth certificate. When I got involved, I didn't fail. I got him to give the birth certificate. So I'm satisfied with it, and I'll tell you why I'm satisfied with it.
That was
because I want to get on to defeating ISIS, because I want to get on to creating jobs, because I want to get on to having a strong border, because I want to get on to things that are very important to me and that are very important to the country.
I'll let you respond. That's important, but I just want to get the answer here. The birth certificate was produced in 2011. You continued to tell the story and question the president's legitimacy in 2012, 13, 14, 15, as recently as January. So the question is, what changed?
Well, nobody was pressing it. Nobody was caring much about it. I figured you'd ask the question tonight, of course, but nobody was caring much about it. But I was the one that got him to produce the birth certificate, and I think I did a good job. Secretary Clinton.
He didn't answer the question, though.
I mean, you know, now everybody in mainstream is going to say, "Oh, that's
that's a flub, Donald. You didn't answer it. He asked you a specific question about after it produced."
You just have to take a look at CNN last week, the interview with your former campaign manager.
That's how I thought he handled that
and
badly.
She was involved. But just like she can't bring back jobs, she can't produce.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to follow up, and I will let you respond to that because there's a lot there. But we're talking about racial healing in this segment. What do you say to Americans?
Well, it was I say nothing. I say nothing because I was able to get him to produce it. He should have produced it a long time before. I say nothing. But let me just tell you.
What does the birth certificate have to do with racial healing? I never understood that. Because you question his birth, that means you're racist? What if you were to say he's born in Russia? You know what I mean? It just happened to be that, you know, Kenya, he claimed to be his homeland.
And I feel that
it's a silly issue, the birther issue, but doesn't mean it's inherently racist.
I did a great job and a great service, not only for the country, but even for the president in getting him to produce his birth certificate.
Secretary Clinton.
Well, just listen to what you heard. And
see, here's the deal. For those of you watching who like Trump, you need to understand that can only work if he really screwed up.
Donald just admitted he knew he was going to stand on this
All
debate
she needed to do was
stage,
say,
and Lester
listen,
was
and
going
they
to be
laughed.
asking us
that
questions.
means
so
he did
tried
badly.
To put
you may not like
the
it.
whole racist
he fumbled that one
birther
badly.
lie.
She's picking up steam now.
But it can't be dismissed that easily. He has really started his political activity based on this racist lie that our first black president was not an American citizen.
Well,
there was absolutely no evidence for it, but he persisted. He persisted year after year because
here. What do you think, Jared?
some of his supporters,
people
that he was
lead?
trying to bring into his fold, apparently believed it or wanted to believe it.
He's losing a little bit right now.
But remember,
are you buzzed?
No, I'm not.
Donald started his career back in 1973 being sued by the Justice Department for racial discrimination because he would not rent apartments in one of his developments to African Americans, and he made sure that the people who worked for him understood that was the policy. He actually was sued twice by the Justice Department. So he has a long
Thanks, Train Safe at ARFCOM. He said they like that when we cover her face with the box.
Racist behavior.
Here, cover her face with my box. I'm going to try and mouth her words.
Was a very hurtful one.
Right.
You know, Barack Obama is a man of great dignity.
Get on this real good.
And I could tell how much it bothered him and annoyed him that this was being touted and used against him. But I like to remember what Michelle Obama said in her amazing speech at our Democratic National Convention. When they go low, we go high. And Barack Obama went high, despite Donald Trump's best efforts to bring him down.
Mr. Trump, you can respond, then we're going to move on.
That's pretty good. That was pretty close.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good skill.
That's pretty good skill. Useless. We'll produce $0.
That's louder with credit.com.
And I watched the way you talk now about how lovely everything is and how wonderful you are.
You basically call him a racist. My wife has a good point. Hey, Hill, you're on the mic when I go urinate during the commercial break. Just don't put her on camera because I don't want all the horny YouTubers to make.
I don't think you can deny that. But just last week, your campaign manager said it was true. So when you try to act holier than thou, it really doesn't work. It really doesn't. Now, as far as the lawsuit, yes, when I was very young, I went into my father's company, had a real estate company in Brooklyn and Queens.
People are saying just keep her face covered with me.
Many other companies throughout the country.
Just do it as much as you can, when you have it on.
Yeah. We settled the suit with no admission of guilt. It was very easy to do, but they sued many people. I notice you bring that up a lot, and I also notice the very nasty commercials that you do on me in so many different ways, which I don't do on you. Maybe I'm trying to save the money, but frankly, I look at that and I say, isn't that amazing? Because I settled that lawsuit with no admission of guilt.
You may want to
but that was a lawsuit brought against many real estate firms, and it's just one of those things. I'll go on one step further. In Palm Beach, Florida, a tough community, a brilliant community, a wealthy community, probably the wealthiest community there is in the world.
All right, I'll be right back.
I opened a club.
Sounds good.
And
myself.
Really got great credit for it. No discrimination against African Americans, against Muslims, against anybody. And it's a tremendously successful club, and I'm so glad I did it. And I have been given great credit for what I did, and I'm very, very proud of it. And that's the way I feel. That is the true way I feel.
Our next segment is called Securing America. We want to start with a 21st century war happening every day in this country. Our institutions are under cyber attack, and our secrets are being stolen. So my question is, who's behind it, and how do we fight it? Secretary Clinton, this answer goes to you.
Well, I think cybersecurity, cyber warfare will be one of the biggest challenges facing the next president, because clearly we're facing at this point two different kinds of adversaries. There are the independent hacking groups that do it mostly for commercial reasons, to try to steal information that they then can use to make money. But increasingly, we are seeing cyber attacks coming from states, organs of states. The most recent and troubling of these has been Russia. There's no doubt now that Russia has used cyber attacks against all kinds of organizations in our country, and I am deeply concerned about this. I know Donald's very praiseworthy of Vladimir Cyber, but Putin is playing a really tough, long game here.
For those of you who can't hear, that's Hopper's cone of shame.
And one of the things he's done is to let loose cyber attackers to hack into government files, to hack into personal files, hack into the Democratic National Committee.
Tell me, tweet made us credit. Did he keep the tweets going? Did he keep the commentary going while I was gone?
I
said like 3 words.
Preferred methods of trying to wreak havoc and collect information.
What?
We need to make it very clear, whether it's
take your
Russia,
drink?
China, Iran, or anybody else. The United States has much greater capacity.
Well, it'd be great if we had
in New York.
And we are not going to sit
it'd be great if we had a leader who knew how to,
permit
not use
state
basement
actors
servers to lose their
our
crap.
Information. Our private sector information or our public sector information.
Where were you hosting your emails, Hillary? GoDaddy?
GoDaddy.
I just love that commercial with that girl with a tank top.
We don't want to use the kinds of
at
tools
Russia.co.
that we have. We don't want to engage in a different kind of warfare. But we will defend the citizens of this country. And the Russians need to understand that. I think they've been treating it as almost a probing. How far would we go?
Well,
How
Hillary
much
would be
would
the
we
only
do?
probing you've had in years.
I was so shocked when Donald publicly invited Putin to hack into Americans. That is just unacceptable. It's one of the reasons why 50 national security officials who served in Republican administration have said that Donald is unfit to be the commander-in-chief. It's comments like that that really worry people who understand the threats that we face.
Mr. Trump, you have 2 minutes in the same question. Who's behind it? And how do we fight it?
I do want to say that I was just endorsed, and more are coming next week. It'll be over 200 admirals, many of them are here. Admirals and generals endorsed me.
I fired?
Everyone said you didn't say anything while I was gone. I told you to keep it going. I got your beer.
That just happened.
While I was
very uncomfortable. This is huge pressure,
Steve. I'm very proud of it. In addition, I was just endorsed by ICE. They've never endorsed anybody before on immigration. I was just endorsed by ICE. I was just recently endorsed 16,500 Border Patrol agents. So when Secretary Clinton talks about this, I mean, I'll take
6,700.
What the hell are you doing with your life?
Generals
Get the hell off!
Over the political hacks that I see that
we
have
thought like we'd get a couple thousand
over the last 10 years.
What the hell are you doing?
Okay? Because
it's over. Go home.
Look at the mess that we're in. As far as the cyber,
I don't want this pressure.
to parts of what Secretary Clinton
So many things
said.
you could do it, but you said you're watching some
We should
schmo
be
with
better than anybody else,
guacamole.
and perhaps we're not. I don't think anybody knows it was Russia that broke into the DNC. She's saying Russia, 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 but I don't. Maybe it was. I mean, it could be Russia, but it could also be China. It could also be lots of other people. It also could be somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds. Okay, you don't know who broke in to DNC, but what did we learn with DNC? We learned that Bernie Sanders was taken advantage of by
he's trying to appeal to the Bernie
people,
voters.
by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Look what happened to her.
We want a more
Bernie
drunk, not gay
Sanders
Jared.
Was taken advantage of. That's
Drink
what
up.
it is. Now, whether that was Russia,
You're probably
whether
that
that
hard.
was
All I'm
China,
eating for dinner
whether
is
it was
this,
another country, we
these
don't
chips
know.
and guacamole.
Because the truth is, under President Obama,
I had a smoothie.
We've lost control.
You know
what
why?
it's worth.
Guess
of
what I ate
things
for
that
lunch?
we used to have control over. We
You had
came
wings for
in
lunch,
with
didn't you?
the
Yeah, I did.
internet.
I did.
We
You're
came
so
up
stupid.
with the internet, and I think Secretary
For what's
Clinton
worth,
and
this
myself
holy
would agree very
guacamole
much.
brand,
When you
this
look
shameless
at
plug,
what
it's
ISIS
very
is
good.
doing with the
Spicy?
internet,
Is that from
they're
Costco?
beating us at our
No,
own
it's actually
game.
just from like
ISIS.
You get to anywhere.
So we have to get
Holy
very,
guacamole.
very
Sorry, I
tough
think we should be
on
listening to
cyber
national
and
security.
cyber
Probably should.
warfare.
Now that we insulted our entire
It is a
audience.
huge problem. I have a son. He's 10 years old. He has computers.
How the hell does he have a 10-year-old son? That's Old Testament Abraham
the
shit.
security aspect of cyber.
How does
is
he have a
very,
10-year-old
very
son?
tough. And maybe it's
It's the
He's
perks
like
of
70.
It's the perks of
but I
trading
will
in
say
models
we
on
are
wives
not
every few years.
doing the job we should be doing. But that's true throughout our whole
Sorry, pardon my
governmental
language.
society. We have so many things that we have to do better, Lester, and certainly cyber is one of them.
Secretary Clinton.
Well, I think there are a number of issues that we should be addressing. I have put forth a plan to defeat ISIS. It does involve going after them online. I think we need to do much more with our tech companies to prevent ISIS and their operatives from being able to use the internet to radicalize, even direct people in our country and Europe and elsewhere. But we also have to intensify our air strikes against ISIS and eventually support our Arab and Kurdish partners to be able to actually take out ISIS in Raqqa and their claim of being a caliphate. We're making progress. Our military is assisting in Iraq, and we're hoping that within the year we'll be able
turning
to
his microphone
push
off so he can eat
ISIS
his
out of
guacamole
Iraq
and you don't
then,
realize what it is.
really squeeze them in Syria.
100% true.
But we have to be cognizant of
Hillary,
the fact that
lavender on the
they've had
lens.
foreign fighters coming to volunteer for them, foreign money, foreign weapons. So we have to make this the top priority, and I would also do everything possible to take out their leadership. I was involved in a number of efforts to take out al-Qaeda leadership when I was Secretary of State, including, of course, taking out bin Laden. And I think we need to go after Baghdadi
you had nothing to do with bin Laden.
as well. Make that one of our organizing principles, because we've got to
Except for her
defeat
husband
ISIS,
not doing a thing
and
about him in the
we've got
90s.
to do everything we can to disrupt their propaganda efforts online.
You mentioned ISIS, and we think of ISIS certainly as
what happened to ISIL? Did they just give up on that?
I think so. Have been inspired to commit acts of terror.
They printed the T-shirts, but no one bought them.
The latest incident, of course, the bombings we just saw in New York and New Jersey, the knife
I was
attack
burned in a
at
cage
mall
by
in
ISIL, and all I got
Minnesota
was a
last
stupid
year,
T-shirt.
deadly attacks in San Bernardino and Orlando. I'll ask this to both of you. Tell us specifically how you would prevent homegrown attacks by American citizens, Mr. Trump.
Well, first I have to say one thing, very important. Secretary Clinton is talking about taking out ISIS. We will take out ISIS. Well, President Obama and Secretary Clinton created a vacuum the way they got out of Iraq, because they got out, they shouldn't have been in, but once they got in, the way they got out was a disaster, and ISIS was formed. So she talks about taking them out. She's been doing it a long time. She's been trying to take them out for a long time. But they wouldn't have even been formed if they left some troops behind, like 10,000 or maybe something more than that. And then you wouldn't have had them. Or, as I've been saying for a long time, and I think you'll agree because I said it to you once, had we taken the oil, and we should have taken the oil, ISIS would not have been able to form either, because the oil was their primary source of income. And now they have the oil all over the place, including the oil, a lot of the oil in Libya, which was another one of her disasters.
Secretary Clinton.
True.
Well, I hope the fact checkers are turning up the volume and really
She's
working
calling her
hard.
flying monkeys.
Donald
fly,
supported the invasion
bitches,
of Iraq.
fly.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
Wrong.
proved
Make sure
over
all
and
the
over again.
searches,
We
folks.
actually
Ambassador
advocated for
Stevens,
the actions
go
we
to
took in Libya.
Pottery
And
Man.
urged that Gaddafi be taken out after
Text the
actually
Google
doing
CEO.
some business with him one time. But the larger point, he says this constantly, is
Oh, Lord, you can see her mouth
George
a little bit when
W.
she does that.
Bush
No.
made the agreement about when American
sweating. Can you see
troops
it?
would leave Iraq,
a little
not
bit? The
Barack
glisten?
Obama.
Yeah.
And the only way that American troops
I
could
think I need
have
to cool
stayed
down.
in Iraq is to get an
need to cool down a
agreement
little
from the
bit.
then Iraqi government that would have protected our troops. And the Iraqi government would not
This is
give
just
that.
the worst night. This
But
is a nightmare.
Let's talk about the question you asked, Lester. The question you asked is, what do we do here in the United States? That's the most important part of this. How do we prevent attacks? How do we protect our people? And I think we've got to have an
Keep you out of
intelligence
office, for
surge
starters.
where we are looking for every scrap of information. I was so proud of law enforcement in New York, in Minnesota, in New Jersey. You know, they responded so quickly, so professionally
done
to
saying
the
they're all
attacks
racist.
Yeah.
that occurred by Rahami. And they brought him down. And we may find out more information because he is still alive, which may prove to be an intelligence benefit. So we've got to do everything we can to vacuum up intelligence from Europe, from the Middle
you had to
East.
create an abortion
That means
reference
we've
for the
got to
vacuum.
work more closely with our allies.
We've
And
got
that's
to
something
coat
that
hanger them
Donald has
out
been very
of their
aggressive about.
hiding places.
We're working with NATO, the longest military
We're going to
alliance in the
hell.
history of the world, to really turn our attention to terrorism.
Donald Trump's
We're
faces
working
look like
with our
my
friends in the Middle East,
94-year-old
many of which, as you
grandmother-in-law
know,
when she's
are
reacting to
Muslim
stuff.
majority
I don't know what it looks like I can
nations.
imagine.
Like you made her,
Donald
like you made her in
has
Manhattan with too much
consistently
vermouth.
insulted
Yeah.
Muslims abroad, Muslims at home, when we need to be cooperating with Muslim nations and with the American Muslim community. They're on the front lines. They can provide information to us that we might not get anywhere else. They need to have close working cooperation with law enforcement in these communities, not be alienated and pushed away, as some of Donald's rhetoric, unfortunately, has led to.
Mr.
Well, I'd have to respond.
Please respond.
The Secretary said very strongly about working with. We've been working with them for many years. And we have the greatest mess anyone's ever seen. You look at the Middle East, it's a total mess. Under your direction to a large extent. But you look at the Middle East. You started the Iran deal. That's another beauty where you have a country that was ready to fall. I mean, they were doing so badly. They were choking on the sanctions, and now they're going to be actually probably a major power at some point pretty soon, the way they're going. But when you look at NATO, I was asked on a major show, what do you think of NATO? Now, you have to understand, I'm a business person. I did really well, but I have common sense. And I said, well, I'll tell you.
For those,
I haven't given lots of thought to NATO, but two things. Number one,
They wouldn't
the
see it.
28
Facebook people are
countries
saying
of
it's
NATO,
off.
many
They
of
won't go
them
to
aren't
YouTube,
paying
but-
their fair share. Number two, and that bothers me because we should be asked, we're defending them, and they should at least be paying us what they're supposed to be paying by treaty and contract. And number two, I said, and very strongly, NATO could be obsolete because, and I was very strong on this, and it was actually covered very accurately
Gosh,
in the New
a
York
lot of
Times, which
people
is
who are Trump
unusual
fans
for
are
the New
saying
York Times, to be honest.
Not
He's
happy?
getting,
I said they
he's
do not
getting
focus
manhandled
on
right now, which
terror.
I'm surprised.
And I was very strong, and I said it numerous times.
Yes.
And
Let me ask them
about
how they think he's
4
doing.
months ago, I read on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that NATO is opening up a major terror division. And I think that's great. And I think we should get, because we pay approximately 73% of the cost of NATO. It's a lot of money to protect other people. But I'm all for NATO. But I said they have to focus on terror also. And they're going to do that. And that was, believe me, I'm sure I'm not going to get credit for it, but that was largely because of what I was saying and my criticism of NATO. I think we have to get NATO to go into the Middle East with us in addition to surrounding nations, and we have to knock the hell out of ISIS, and we have to do it fast. When ISIS formed in this vacuum created by Barack Obama and Secretary Clinton, and believe me, you were the ones that
drink.
took out the troops. Not only that, you named the day. They couldn't believe,
Believe
it. They
me,
sat back probably
you're
and said,
getting
"I
drunk."
can't believe it." They said, "No, wait a
Believe
minute."
me,
When
you're
they
getting
formed-
shit-faced.
When they formed, This is something that never should have happened. It should have never happened. Now, you're talking
Jared's
about
only on
taking out
halfway
ISIS,
through his second beer, by the
but you
way.
were there,
He's totally
and
not playing by the rules.
Secretary of State when it was a little infant. Now it's in over 30
Really, a little infant?
countries.
She didn't kill it?
And you're going to stop them? I don't think so.
Mr. Trump, a lot of these are judgment questions. You had supported the war in Iraq before the invasion. What makes your judgment?
I did not support the war in Iraq.
2002.
That is a mainstream media.
Wow, someone just said he just delivered Hillary to us as next president.
Because she, frankly, I think the
I have
best
about
person
4 or 5
in her
answers here
campaign
saying
is mainstream media.
some
My
idiot
question is, since you
would you like to hear
started,
why
that's
is
his
your-
name, started going well, then everything went downhill, and he hasn't come
I was
back after the birth
against
certificate.
The war in Iraq.
Not so hot.
The record shows otherwise.
The record
but why
does not show that.
why is your
The
judgment?
record
He's
shows
doing all
that
right,
I'm
but I think some of his answers have been vague.
When I did an
Not as good as he
interview
could be
with
doing.
Howard Stern, very lightly, first time anyone's asked me that, I said, very lightly.
He's on the ropes
I don't
hard.
know, maybe, who knows, essentially. I then did an interview with Neil Cavuto. We talked about the economy is more important. I then spoke to Sean Hannity, which everybody refuses to call Sean Hannity. I had numerous conversations with Sean Hannity.
That's for
and Fox.
multitude of reasons.
And Sean Hannity said, and he called me the other
Does someone want
day,
to call me?
and I
Does a great
spoke to him
American want to
about
call me?
it. He
No.
said you were totally against the war because he was for the war.
Why is
and
your
excuse
judgment
me,
better than-
and that was before
Even
the war
great
started.
Americans don't
Sean
want him at the
Hannity
party.
said very strongly to me and other people, he's willing to say, but nobody wants to call him, I was against the war. He said, you used to have fights with me because Sean was in favor of the war. And I understand that side also, not very much because we should have never been there. But nobody called Sean Hannity. And then they did an article in a
Someone
major
said
magazine
he's
shortly
doing
after
between
the war
okay
started.
and oh God, we're going to lose
I
this
think
election.
in 04,
Oh, my.
but they did an article which had me totally against the war in Iraq. And one of your compatriots
people are
said,
saying he's
you
not
know,
doing well.
Whether it was before or right after, Trump was definitely, because if you read this article, there's no doubt. But if somebody, and I'll ask the press, if somebody
didn't
would
think he was
call
doing that
up
badly.
Sean Hannity, this was before the war started, he and I used to have arguments about the war. I said it's a terrible and a stupid thing. It's going to destabilize
Why
the
is
Middle
Hillary
East,
with
and
one
that's
L
exactly
trending?
what it's done. It's been a
Her
disaster.
supporters are
what you had
my
said
wife
in
is hot.
2002.
Her supporters are such dumbasses. They don't know how to spell their name.
Why is your judgment
Don't
any
ruin the
different
good
than
Hillary.
Mrs. Clinton?
Well, I have much better judgment than she does. There's no question about that. I also have a much better temperament than she has. You know, I have a much better. She spent, let me tell you, she spent hundreds of millions of dollars on an advertising. You know, they get Madison Avenue into a room, they put in temperament. Let's go after. I think my strongest asset, maybe by far, is my temperament. I have a winning temperament. I know how to win. She does not know how to
Secretary
win.
Clinton?
Wait, the AFL-CIO the other day, behind the blue screen, I don't know who you were talking to, Secretary Clinton, but you were totally out of control. I said,
For her, that's
there's
the
a
face of,
person
they're
with a
feeding me my
temperament
talking
that's got a
lines right
problem."
now.
Secretary Clinton.
She's loving
Okay.
this. She's finding a rhythm. She just shook her bosoms. Did you see that?
Let's
Oh,
talk
God.
In her
about
padded
two
bra. She's
important
got the cutlets
issues
in there.
that
Oh,
were briefly
dear God.
mentioned by Donald. First, NATO. You know, NATO as a military alliance has something called Article 5, and basically
Okay.
it says this:
Time for me
an
to
attack
lie
on
about
one is an
crap.
attack on all. And do you know the only time it's ever been invoked? After 9/11, when the 28 nations of NATO said that they would go to Afghanistan with us to fight terrorism, something that they still are doing by our side. With respect to Iran, when I became Secretary of State, Iran was weeks away from having enough nuclear
The consensus
material
is he's
to
not
form
doing
a
well.
bomb. They had mastered the nuclear fuel cycle under
Someone
the Bush
said, "I don't think he's doing
administration.
that
They
bad.
had
It's 'cause
built
you're drunk."
covert facilities. They had stocked them with centrifuges that were whirling away. And we had sanctioned them. I voted for every sanction
there gonna be
against
at least
Iran
one
when I
break
was
here?
in the Senate, but it wasn't enough. So I spent a year and a half putting together a coalition that included
spell,
Russia and China
consensus?
to impose the toughest sanctions on Iran. And we did drive them to the negotiating table. And my successor, John Kerry, and President Obama got a deal that put a lid on Iran's nuclear program without firing a single shot. That's diplomacy. That's coalition
I'm just
building.
going to mime
That's
it, okay?
working
I'm going to
with other
mime it for
nations.
people who don't know.
The other
Do
day,
it.
I saw Donald saying that there were some Iranian sailors on a ship in the waters off of Iran, and they were taunting American sailors who were on a nearby ship. He said, you know, if they taunted our sailors, I'd blow them out of the water and start another war. That's not good judgment. That is not the right temperament to be commander-in-chief, to be taunted. And the worst part of what we've heard Donald say has been about nuclear weapons. He has said repeatedly that he didn't care if other nations got nuclear weapons, Japan, South Korea, even Saudi Arabia. It has been the policy of the United States, Democrats and Republicans, to do everything we could to reduce the proliferation of nuclear weapons. He even said, well, you know, if there were a nuclear war in the East Asia, well, you know, that's fine. You know, have a good time, folks. And in fact, his cavalier attitude about nuclear weapons is so deeply troubling. That is the #1 threat we face in the world, and it becomes particularly threatening if terrorists ever get their hands on any nuclear material. So a man who can be provoked by a tweet should not have his fingers anywhere near the nuclear
let's give Iran
codes,
more stuff.
As far as I think anyone with any sense about this should be concerned.
That line's getting a little bit old, I must say. Listen,
it's a good one, though.
I would like to,
well describes the problem.
It's not an accurate one at all. It's not an accurate one. So I just want to give a lot of things and just to respond. I agree.
I will say, people. I'm seeing a lot of Trump supporters in the timeline saying, "I wish you were doing better here." That he started off really strong. We both agreed, but he's been fading off. Would you say that's fair?
Global warming, like you think.
Yeah, he's getting a little sleepy almost.
Your president thinks. Nuclear is the single greatest threat. Just to go down the list, we defend Japan, we defend Germany, we defend South Korea.
There are no commercials during the debate.
We defend countries. They do not pay us what they should be paying us because we are providing tremendous service and we're losing a fortune. That's why we're losing. We lose on everything. I say, who makes these? We lose on everything. Well, I say that it's very possible that if they don't pay a fair share, because this isn't 40 years ago where we could do what we're doing. We can't defend Japan, a behemoth selling us cars by the million.
We need to move on.
Wait, but it's very important. All I said was they may have to defend themselves.
It's very important.
It's very important.
Help us out. We're a country that owes $20 trillion. They have to help us out.
As
far as the nuclear is concerned, I agree. It is the single
How long are these debates? Are they 2 hours? They're supposed to be an hour 40.
Which leads my next question. As we enter our last segment here still on the subject of securing America on nuclear weapons, President Obama reportedly considered changing the nation's longstanding policy on first use. Do you support the current policy? Mr. Trump, you have 2 minutes on that.
Well, I have to say that, for what Secretary Clinton was saying about nuclear with Russia, she's very cavalier in the way she talks about various countries. But Russia's been expanding.
With China and Mexico?
They have a much newer capability than we do. We have not been updating from the new standpoint. I looked the other night, I was seeing B-52s. They're old enough that your father, your grandfather could be flying them. We are not keeping up with other countries. I would like everybody to end it, just get rid of it. But I would certainly not do first strike. I think that once the nuclear alternative happens, it's over. At the same time, we have to be prepared. I can't take anything off the table because you look at some of these countries. You look at North Korea. We're doing nothing there. China should solve that problem for us. China should go into North Korea. China is totally powerful as it relates to North Korea. And by the way, another one powerful is the worst deal I think I've ever seen negotiated that you started is the Iran deal. Iran is one of their biggest trading partners. Iran has power over North Korea. And when they made that horrible deal with Iran, they should have included the fact that they do something with respect to North Korea. And they should have done something with respect to Yemen and all these other places.
Metzger asking if it's Canada Dry. No, it's
Secretary
Summer Bright.
Kerry, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do
It's from Colorado somewhere.
From Breckenridge Brewery.
One of the great giveaways
it's not my
of all
personal
time,
choice, but
of all time, including $400 million in cash. Nobody's ever seen that before. That turned out to be wrong. It was actually $1.7 billion in cash. Obviously, I guess, for the hostages, it certainly looks that way. So you say to yourself, why didn't they make the right deal? This is one of the worst deals ever made by any country in history. the deal with Iran will lead to nuclear problems. All they have to do is sit back 10 years, and they don't have to do much. And they're going to end up getting nuclear.
Well,
I met with
what can you do?
Bibi Netanyahu the other day. Believe me, he is not a happy camper.
All right.
Drink.
Well,
believe me.
Secretary Clinton, you have 2 minutes.
Let me start.
Now,
by
do you think
saying
Gary Johnson would have shaken this up at all yet?
Words matter.
I think he would have
when
smoked
you
himself
run
silly
for
and pissed the
president,
stage.
and they really
Before
matter
Hillary?
when you are president.
Potheads
And
need a better
I want to
representative than Gary
reassure
Johnson.
our allies in
He used to be
Japan and
reasonable.
South
He
Korea
really
and
has smoked
elsewhere
himself silly. I
that
think
we
he's the
have
worst
mutual defense
argument
treaties, and we will
for
honor
pot you
them.
could possibly find. He's just people just
It
go,
is
really? You want to be like Gary
essential
Johnson?
that America's word be good.
That's Aleppo.
And so I know
What
that
is
this campaign has
Aleppo?
caused some questioning and some worries
I don't know why I was
on
doing
the
that.
part of
That was like the,
many leaders
Abominable
across
Snowman
the
and Rudolph.
globe.
Oh, yeah.
I've talked with a number of them. But I want to, on behalf of myself, and I think on behalf of a majority of the American people,
Hillary said it
say
looks,
that,
my wife,
you
good
know, our
Hillary, said
word
it
is
looks
good.
like Trump's going to vomit.
It's also important that we look at the entire global situation. There's no
Yeah, he
doubt
doesn't look-
that we
he
have
looks like he's
other
not feeling well or something.
problems with
You
Iran,
notice that?
but personally, I'd rather
Yeah.
deal with the other problems having
look at that
put
face, it's like,
lid
did
on
I
their
crap
nuclear
myself?
program than still
think I
be
did.
facing that. And Donald never tells you what he would do. Would he have started a war? Would he have bombed Iran? If he's going to
Well, Hillary, they go
criticize a
before. My
deal
wife wants to know what
that
they do if they have to go to
has
the
been very successful in giving us access to Iranian
That's Trump going,
facilities that we never had
narb.
before,
Got it.
then
I've
he
got
should
a
tell us what his alternative
Got a
would be.
narb.
But it's like his plan to defeat ISIS.
You can
He
Google
says
that later,
it's a
Steve.
secret plan, but the only secret is that he has no plan. So we need to be more precise in how we talk
to
about
do
these
about this
issues. People
narb.
around the world follow our presidential campaigns so closely, trying to get hints about what we will do. Can they rely on us? Are we going to lead the world?
Someone
with
says, are you going to vote Hillary?
strength and
Just because I've been saying that
accordance
she's
with
been doing
our
better the
values?
second
That's
half.
what
This
I
is the
intend
problem
to
with
do.
people. They're so silly.
I intend to be
Listen, if you want someone's going to lie to you,
of our country that people
Go
can
shut
count on,
it.
both here at home and around the world. To
tune in where someone's going to
decisions
tell you what you
that
want to
will
hear. I think
further
Trump started
peace
off really
and
strong.
prosperity,
I think he
but
did
also
really
stand
poorly
up to
in the second
bullies,
half,
whether
and I think
they're
now it's
abroad or at home. We cannot
she's
let
ahead,
those
but not
who
by
would
much.
try to destabilize the world, to interfere with American interests and security.
What it looks like right now is he's been
any
dragged into deeper
opportunities
waters
at all.
that he wasn't
Let's
ready
do one
for.
thing I'd
Yeah.
like to say.
Very quickly.
I will go very quickly, but I will tell you that Hillary will tell you to go to her website and read all about how to defeat ISIS, which she could have defeated by never having it, get going in the first place. Right now, it's getting tougher and tougher to defeat them because they're in more and more places, more and more states, more and more nations.
Mr. Trump.
And it's a big problem. And as far as Japan is concerned, I want to help all of our allies. But we are losing billions and billions of dollars. We cannot be the policeman of the world. We cannot protect countries all over the world where they're not paying us what we need.
We have
And
just a few final
She doesn't
questions.
say that because she's got no business ability. We need heart. We need a lot of things. But you have to have some basic ability. And sadly, she doesn't have that. All of the things that she's talking about.
I don't know what he's talking about
could
now,
have
do
been
you?
taken
No,
care
I'm not
of during
following.
the
I'm not
last
tracking.
10 years, let's say, while she had great power. But they weren't taken care of. And if she ever wins this race, they won't be taken care
Mr. Trump,
of.
this year, Secretary Clinton became the first woman
Talking about
nominated
Japan?
for president
I
by
think
a
he was
major
just fighting for
party.
that,
Earlier this
that
month, you
airtime.
said she doesn't have, quote, a presidential
That's a
look.
fault with cable
She's
news.
standing here right now. What did you mean by that?
She doesn't have the
She
look.
looks
She
like-
doesn't have
looks
the
like Kim Jong-un.
stamina. I said she doesn't have the stamina. And I don't believe she does have the stamina. To be president of this
That's
country,
fair.
you need tremendous stamina.
The quote was,
you
"I just don't think she has
wait
a
a minute, unless you
presidential
asked me a
look."
question. Did you ask me a question? You have to be able to negotiate our trade deals. You have to be able to negotiate, that's right, with Japan, with Saudi Arabia. I mean, can you imagine when we're defending Saudi Arabia and with all of the money they have, we're defending them and they're not paying? All you have to do is speak to them. Wait, you have so many different things you have to be able to do, and I don't believe that Hillary has the stamina.
Let's let her respond.
What?
Well,
What?
as soon as he travels to 112 countries and negotiates a peace deal, a ceasefire, a release of dissidents, an opening of new opportunities in nations around the world, or even spends 11 hours testifying in front of a congressional committee. He can talk to me about stamina.
The world.
Ouch.
Let me tell you. Hillary has experience, but it's bad experience. We have made so many bad deals during the last.
That's good.
So she's got experience, that I agree, but it's bad experience.
Cheer for cheer.
Whether it's
That's
the
nice.
Iran deal that you're so in love with, where we gave them $150 billion back, whether it's the Iran deal, whether it's anything you can name. You almost can't name a good deal. I agree. She's got experience, but it's bad experience. And this country can't afford to have another 4 years of that kind of experience.
We are at the.
That's a good comeback.
One thing, Lester, is, you know, he tried to switch from looks to stamina. But this is a man who has called women pigs, slobs, and dogs.
That's fair.
Sexism,
and
drink.
Someone who
Drink.
has
I'm almost out of this beer.
pregnancy is an inconvenience to employers.
It
Who
is.
has said women don't deserve equal pay unless they do as good a job as men.
You don't deserve equal pay.
And one of the worst things he said was
Hillary's
about
here. Make her an intern.
woman in a beauty contest. He loves beauty contests,
This is a separate
supporting
phrase. That's
them
another
and hanging
sexism
around
thing.
them.
Yep.
And he called this woman Miss Piggy.
Ah.
Then he called her
Drink just 'cause it's funny.
Miss Housekeeping because she was Latina. Donald, she
They
has
do
a
good
name.
housekeeping.
Her
That's a
name
compliment.
is
Where did you find
Alicia
this?
Machado.
Where did you find
And
it?
she has become a U.S. citizen, and you can bet she's going to vote this November.
Okay, good. Let me just tell you.
Mr. Trump, we'll just take 10 seconds and then we're going to have the final question.
Hillary is hitting me with tremendous commercials. Some of it said in entertainment. Some of it said somebody who's been very vicious to me, Rosie O'Donnell. I said very tough things to her, and I think everybody would agree that she deserves it,
She's a
and
fat,
nobody feels
disgusting
sorry
pig
for her.
bull-dyke.
But you
Rosie.
want to
It's
know
true.
the truth? I was going to say something
Please, very quick.
extremely rough to Hillary, to her family, and I said to myself, I can't do it. I just can't do it.
What?
It's inappropriate. It's not nice.
Then don't
But
bring
she
it up.
spent hundreds of millions of dollars on negative
Where's he
ads
going
on
with
me,
this?
many of which are absolutely
I was gonna
untrue.
be a big
They're
asshole.
untrue, and they're misrepresentations.
But
and
now
I will
I'm
tell
only
you
gonna-
this,
But
Lester,
I say-
it's
I have
not
second
nice,
thoughts.
and I don't deserve that. But it's certainly not a nice thing that she's done. It's hundreds of millions of ads, and the only
You're winning nobody with
gratifying
this,
thing is I
Trump.
saw the polls come in today, and with all of that money,
wait for
over
the polls after
$200
the
million is spent, and I'm either winning or tied, and I've spent practically nothing.
One of you.
It's too
will
easy to
not
get him
win
irritated
this
over the course of the
election.
night
So
with
my
the
final
debate. That's what
question
you're
to you
seeing
tonight.
happening.
Are you willing to accept the outcome as the will of the voters? Secretary Clinton?
Well, I support our democracy. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I certainly will support the outcome of this election. And I know Donald's trying very hard to plant doubts about it, but I hope the people out there understand this election's really up to you. It's not about us so much as it is about you and your families and the kind of country and future you
Checking
want.
Twitter here.
So
We'll
I
do a
sure hope
post-game
you will
wrap-up.
get out and vote as though your future depended on it, because I think it does.
Mr. Trump, very quickly, the same question. Will you accept the outcome as the will of the voters?
I want to make America great again. We are a nation that is seriously troubled. We're losing our jobs. People are pouring into our country. The other day, we were deporting 800 people, and perhaps they passed the wrong button, they pressed the wrong button, or perhaps, worse than that, it was corruption. But these people that we were going to deport for good reason ended up becoming citizens. And it was 800, and now it turns out it might be 1,800, and I don't even know.
Will you accept
Look,
the outcome
here's
of
the
the
story.
election?
Hillary?
I want to make America great again.
Expect her
I'm
to
going to
be
be
crawling
able to
under
do
a
it.
hot
I
light.
don't believe Hillary will. The answer is if she wins, I
Better
will
rip off some
absolutely
crickets.
support her.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us. That concludes our debate for this evening. A spirited one. We covered a lot of ground. Not everything, as I suspected we wouldn't. The next presidential debates are scheduled for October 9th at Washington University in St. Louis.
And I won't be
October
there.
19th at the University of Nevada.
And
Las
I am a
Vegas.
black
The
guy.
conversation
No,
will
really.
continue. A reminder, the vice presidential debate is scheduled for October 4th at Longwood University in Farmville,
And no one
Virginia.
cares.
My thanks to Hillary Clinton and to Donald Trump and to Hofstra University for hosting us tonight. Good night, everyone.
Stab. Shank.
First presidential debate of this campaign season is In the record books, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump taking questions for
it sounds like a 14-year-old. Are we still on Fox?
Minutes. It went a little bit
NBC.
long. And we see them now shaking hands with the moderator, Lester
Look
Holt,
at her.
and
Look at the way she waddles.
Families, as is
it's like a bulldog with asthma.
These nights. Chuck,
I believe the word you're looking for is...
What did we witness tonight? Do you think either candidate moved the needle in their directions?
Before I want to talk about the candidates, this is the
all right, here. So we got the you can just have it playing in the background here. We can talk about it. So we will read your tweets here, Jared. You've got my Jared. You've got my screen up here.
Yep.
He fell apart, says Patrick Thice. Now, just so you know, you can tell these people are more conservative. Hold on a second. He seems to have tried to bring the campaign rhetoric. He wasn't prepared properly. This is someone who is an AR15.com number. So, okay, so we're seeing this. I'm just trying to make sure that these aren't from liberals trolling the Twitter page. I'm at S. Crowder. He's at Not Gay Jared. What do you think of the debate? What's your read?
I think it's pretty clear he had a great entrance into it. He had he came out and he was zippy with his answers. He was pointed with he's sticking to the issues where she was going after the personal stuff, and then just completely did a flip-flop second half. Actually, a little before the second half, he kind of started to fall apart.
If you have to rate the whole debate, who do you give it to?
As a whole?
For someone who's watching, the general American public, the 1/3 who don't know where they're lining up.
Gosh. I think Hillary had a little bit of edge, and I think it's because she ended strong. I think if they would have flip-flopped the order of it, if he would have ended strong, that's what people would be remembering. But I think people are going to remember kind of the Trump flubs toward the end.
Yeah, I think he started off strong. Then I think he did really badly. It started going with the no-fly list to the birther. And then after that, I would be curious to see, they're going to give you the total of time spoken.
Yeah.
But I bet you if you were to segment it, the second half, Hillary probably outpaced him 60-40. I think it started off, it was even-handed. He was interrupting. He was taking the floor. And I think by the end, she was talking more than he was.
He was talking confidently toward the end, but he was talking about stuff I don't even know what it was.
Well, I think again, if you want cheerleaders, go over to one of the cheerleader websites who are paid by Trump or paid by Hillary. We're neither of those. Obviously, I want to see Hillary lose. I would much rather see Trump win at this point. I think he started off really strong, and I think he faded, did really poorly, and then it was kind of neutral. So you see this in fights a lot. You see people who come in, they knock a bunch of guys out in the first round, and once they're dragged into the second or third round, you have people who are able to keep that pace up.
They're not prepared for it.
And you know what they call those, the championship rounds?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like in the UFC, for example, in mixed martial arts, you fight 3 rounds, and then championship rounds are 5 rounds. So you have people who fought their whole lives 3 rounds. And then, when they fight in a title fight, they have to fight 5 5-minute rounds. Well, Donald Trump has never even fought 3 rounds if we're talking about one-on-one debates. So I think he came in, he was ready, and I think he treated it similar to when there were 19 people on the stage.
Yeah.
And she wasn't ready for it. And you see kind of awkward timing and you know, again, like with a fight.
I think she was ready for him to go at him right off the bat.
And he didn't.
But
then she lulled him into it. He's too easy to get frustrated.
Yeah.
And when he's off prompter and you get him mad, he gets back to what makes him unlikable to the general public.
Yeah, and I don't know why he would have gone into the territory, a couple things of he has the best temperance for office. I don't know why he would have gone there, because he didn't do it in a way that really dispelled and shut Hillary down before she can even respond. He just said, I have a great temperance for leadership, and then handed her the microphone.
Yeah.
And she had too much to unload on him on that kind of thing. That's been the central point of so many of the ads against him.
Cybersecurity, that was when he didn't bring up the emails, he didn't bring up Benghazi. So
he didn't put the birther thing, he didn't put back on her.
No, he didn't.
Am I mistaken? Was she not one of the first ones to bring that up?
He should have brought it back on her.
Thrown it back on her.
And kept on it.
He never even went there.
He did, I think, at one point. Talked about someone who worked with her when he led with
not
it.
In a memorable way.
He made the point off on the outset.
Mm-hmm.
And then he rambled. And that's the thing, you've learned this kind of in working with me and everyone who writes the website and writing comedy, where we go end on the punch.
End on the punch. Yep.
And if you have to, if you feel like there are 2 or 3 punchlines, end the punch.
And tag it.
And then tag it with another phrase, another punchline. Yep. Someone would do well to teach that to him. I know he's a showman, and so maybe he thinks he knows everything with that, but it would serve him well to learn how to hit a punch, get in, make your point, and move out. I feel like when he made a few good points, he overstayed his welcome a little bit, and that's where some errors start to happen. That's where some mistakes start to happen. And then at that point, you're about 35 seconds in, 10 seconds in, you made a good point, but Hillary's able to pick out the mistakes you made in the last 35, 40 seconds. So I would say this one, I don't know if I would say it's a draw. I'm looking on Twitter
here's what for Trump. What would you say? How did he do in persuading people from the Hillary camp or people from the left, people from the Bernie camp? So do you think he did anything to win them over in a way that was not compromising? I'm looking back at the Second Amendment issues.
That's a really bad one for him. The no-fly thing is horrible.
I don't think he's going to win anybody off of that. He just gave a lot of people away for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he lost a lot of people. Because here's the thing. When you hear a lot of people, we talk about the no-fly list, right? When you hear a lot of people, what's the main thing they say? The Supreme Court, Heller versus D.C., that's a big thing. Ted Cruz talked about that. The NRA talked about that in their ads, even when they supported Trump, saying, listen, it just takes a couple Supreme Court justices to change that. Well, guess what? You could still have something get before the court where, okay, no fly, no buy. And if he's saying he would put someone in there who would acquiesce to that, well, there goes the argument for a lot of people, including a lot of Democrats, by the way. There are a lot of Democrats, I've said this, they will part with that issue on Hillary Clinton, the gun issue. And a lot of them going, man, I'm a Democrat, I'm a union person, I'm pro-abortion, I'm pro-big tax, pro-big government, but I don't want Hillary Clinton because of the gun issue.
Yeah.
And so they said, so I'm going to have to vote for Donald Trump because he's going to put someone in the Supreme Court, and now he may have lost some goodwill there.
If nothing else, he planted some doubts in people's minds of where he really stands and what he really knows and believes in that. And I think it's one of those things, too, where he doesn't stand anything to gain from it, and he's at the end of the day, you're not going to have people, I think, turn around saying, oh, well, Donald Trump's pretty reasonable about that. I might take a second look.
And you know what it does? It shows that he's uninformed.
Uninformed, and he's not. And if he's trying to play the game of, he can't out-gun control Hillary Clinton. He's not going to outdo her on that realm. Like, he's not going to, I think, swoon people from saying, oh, I thought he was just a crazy gun guy.
No, he's not.
Now I think he's, I might be on board now because he's willing to concede that. So I don't think he won any points of that. I think he just lost some real support.
I think you're right. And I think to people who are he needs more Republican voters at this point. That's what he needs. People don't understand that.
Yep.
He's not going to get any Democrat voters. He needs Republican voters and some of the undecided. So with that being said, that shows that he's uninformed, because anybody, you can run a quick Google search, no fly or terror watch list, famous people, and you'll find Stephen Hayes, you'll find Ted Kennedy. I think Congressman Clyburn was on there. You can find a list of people who were accidentally put on there. And so anyone who knows anything about the Second Amendment, anyone who knows anything about politics to any degree, knows that is BS. As a matter of fact, you'll even hear, even if you watch MSNBC, a lot of liberals saying, well, the no-fly list it sounds good, but it doesn't really mean anything. And you know what? If you're going to say, well, let's use that as a litmus test for people not being able to maintain their rights, well, you can strip them of any right with a no-fly list because there's no appeal. It's just you're put on a list. So even liberals are like, that's not really accurate. So for Donald Trump to go with her on that, he's going to get a lot of fire drawn on him, because it would show that he's somewhat uninformed on that second.
And I think if he was going to go there on that, if he was going to concede a little bit there, if he was going to, attempt to try to draw the line and some followers from the other side, he at least should have laid out a plan of saying, look, there are a lot of problems with this. It needs to be, he never mentioned the words reform and no-fly list.
Right.
And anywhere in there. He mentioned that, maybe help people get off if they're on, but he never talked about even reforming it in a way that made sense to get those people off. He just said, basically, we're going to keep doing what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And, maybe give them a phone number.
I think you're right. I think you lost some ground on there. Here's the thing. With Hillary Clinton, her biggest things, when I hear it, her biggest mistakes are issues that I don't like her on. For example, increasing taxes. For example, her solution to pander, they're both pandering to this blue-collar idea. They're shutting Detroit down. They're both pandering to, blue-collar workers by telling them they're going to keep their jobs through either government tariffs, or she's saying through big government taxes. I don't care whether
they're both fighting for the Rust Belt hard.
They're fighting for the Rust Belt hard. And by the way, the Rust Belt, outside of Pennsylvania and Ohio, it's lost. Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, it's union country. It's gimme country. The things where I think she flubbed, again, I have to watch this as someone who's an American, it's because I don't like her policy. But she did pontificate. She did clarify her policy as to what she would do with taxes, as to how she would bring jobs here. Now, it's bigger taxes. Of course, I don't believe it'll work. This whole Keynesian type of economics, I don't agree with her. However, it's not an error where someone just watching will say, oh, she sounds like she doesn't know what she's talking about. Again, that's where the Democrats will already agree with her, and undecided people will look and say, well, at least she's offering something that sounds viable in contrast to Trump. My issues with Trump was that I agree with him if you look at his tax policy, if you look at his website. He wasn't able to express that. With her, she was able to express it, and that's what I didn't like about her. Mm-hmm. But to the undecided people, that's a plus. With him, he wasn't able to express it, which I wanted to hear because I agree more with his policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think with her, I think when you look back on some of her greatest her hardest hitting moments of the debate, I think we saw this before. We have some hints of this before in some of her rallies. Her greatest hardest hitting moments were the ones where she just said, "You heard it. Let the audience laugh."
Exactly.
And I think Trump has really got to watch the moments. That was, I think, also on the temperance thing. He went there, didn't provide a way, didn't cut her off at the pass. He opened the door wide open to that attack. Yeah. She has too many talking points on that. She has too many things. If you watch any Hillary ad, that's all it's about.
It's a good point because him saying, well, why don't, you can't blame me for everything. Well, why don't we? It's a clever thing when people laugh. That's different, right? Because that's a punchline and a laugh. It's very different from someone providing no punchline and going,
look at the clown.
Donald Trump, folks. Again, if you're not going to like to hear this, but that's the general public, that audience. Let's say it's split. Let's say it's stacked in her favor. However, you don't get to simply say, this is what he said, and say nothing with people laughing unless it was absurd enough to the point where people think it's silly. So you need to take the blinders off. I don't think either had a great performance. I guess I would kind of call it a wash. I think you're going to see the Drudge poll, and it will say Donald Trump won by 100% margin. I think HuffPo will say Hillary Clinton won by 100% margin. I think if you look at people who still haven't decided, I would think maybe a 55-45, 60-40 for Hillary. Mm-hmm. If only, I think they probably had their moments, but hers came later in the debate, and those, just like in sports, they're scored more heavily.
Yeah. I think you're right.
That's my take on it. But you know what? There are two more debates, and gosh.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What does Trump have to learn going into the next one to be better?
I don't know that he can. Ironically enough.
Can he adapt fast enough?
Ironically enough, you know what he lacked this debate specifically was stamina. He faded, and he got tired. He started off strong, and he finished really slow. He was lagging. So he needs to. Again, I could be wrong here. I mean, if Charles Krauthammer gets it wrong 60% of the time, I probably don't have a shot. I think he needs to pace himself. He needs to prepare a little bit more. And he needs to understand that Hillary Clinton, because she's a robot demon woman, doesn't get flustered. And she's okay with personal attacks. She's okay weathering the storm as long as she can get her shots in later.
Yeah.
So I think most importantly, ironically enough, the lady with pneumonia and likely AIDS and cancer out-conditioned him. She had better debate conditioning than him tonight.
Yeah, that's an experience thing as well. It's something you can't really. I don't know how you would even prepare for that, really.
Yeah, again, I'm just trying to see this from people who haven't decided yet. Hopefully that provides some insight to people, because a lot of people can't get past their own point of view with that. No, Trump won, and Hillary won, and he's a sexist. You don't want to be the conservative version of Trump's a sexist no matter what he says. You don't want to be the conservative version of Hillary's a liar. You need to look at it. You don't do yourself any favors by lying to yourself. When it started off, though, I do feel like it started off so strong for him. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that was for 30% of the time, and then for 70% of the time, she was better, but she didn't have any of those really strong pops.
She didn't. And when he did kind of perk up with some life, usually, like, if you're to just garble the language he was saying, the words he was speaking, the energy was back. But once you put the English back in, it's like, where is he going with this? I'm not sure what he's talking about. Yeah. He's just trying to go off on a tangent just to get his minutes in. And I don't think he was prepared enough to give a response to what she was talking about previously.
That's true. But I think here's the thing I think that Trump has going for him. I think a lot of people are wanting to give this to him. They're wanting him to win because they are tired of the establishment of the politicians like Hillary Clinton. They don't like her. They want her to lose. He didn't quite hand her that loss tonight.
No.
If we're trying to look at this objectively, people are lined up and ready for Donald Trump to win. People who aren't already, make America great again. People are lined up for someone other than Hillary. I don't think Donald Trump served her the loss that he needed tonight. So I think after this, I think it's still in play. I think it's anybody's game, and I think he needs to get better debate conditioning. I think he needs to understand that she can weather the storm, and she can keep her pace up, and he needs to be able to do that. I think that will be the biggest factor. Look in future debates to see he's not going to be able to come on that strong. So in the next debate, if we go, oh, okay, he's not coming out guns blazing the first 30 minutes,
but
that'll give us an idea.
You need the fourth quarter Trump.
Yep.
You need the fourth quarter Trump.
Yep.
We didn't see that tonight.
So that's my read on it. I don't know. You can tweet me at SCrowder or at NotGayJared. We're going to get a highlight reel up on YouTube or something?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay, so this will get up on YouTube somewhere, hopefully with not some kind of copyright thing. And tweet us. Let us know what you thought. And we are here to serve and to please. Don't get any ideas. This doesn't mean daily. We are not making an announcement in late October and or November. We're not building a new studio. We are not going daily. So #NeverDaily. Make sure you tell your friends. Thank you for being with us. And hydrate. Get your electrolytes if you were playing the drinking game. We'll see you Thursday for the left. Wait, hold on a second. We have Andrew Bogut.
Andrew Bogut.
And either, we don't know, Paul Joseph Watson or Ben Shapiro on this week. So big show. Yep. Andrew Bogut, NBA All-Star? All-Star?
NBA champion.
So there you go. Andrew Bogut. So big show this week. We will see you Thursday. Tell your friends. Otherwise, you're an anti-Semite and racist and sexist and transphobe.
Sounds fair to me.
Ooh, Dan Rather looks rough.